Veronica Lopez is suing her former roommate's mother, dispatcher Christy Malden, for stealing her dog and the dog's puppies. Christy says Veronica is a neglectful pet owner.
Yes, case number 80 on the calendar in the matter of Lopez versus Malden. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Ms. Lopez, it is your claim that the defendant, who is the mother of a former roommate of yours,
Yes.
stole your dog and her puppies, and you want to be compensated to the tune of $1,900.
Yes.
The defendant says that you neglected this dog, that she spent over $1,000 in vet bills putting the dog in a reasonable condition, and that she ultimately sold the puppies. We'll find out what you did with the dog. I understand that this was not the first time your dog had puppies, according to your complaint. Is that right?
That's correct.
What kind of a dog was it?
It was a Chipu, half Chihuahua, half Poodle.
Where did you get the dog from?
It was a Christmas gift to my daughter from her father for Christmas of 2002.
How many litters have you had with this dog?
This is the second one.
Who did you breed her with?
It was actually a situation where there was a dog, a poodle, that lived around my area. And I had a doggy door, and the dog was able to squeeze through my gate. And while I was at work, she got pregnant while I was at work.
So what you're telling me is you don't know really who the father was?
No, I do. I know the dog. I know the dog.
So it was an accident?
Yes.
Why didn't you have the dog spayed?
Because I figured that I had it fixed. I had intentions of doing it, but it happened too quickly.
Well, that doesn't happen too quickly, madam. You had got the dog as a puppy in December of 2002.
Well,
in 6 months, you had the dog spayed. And if you didn't have the dog spayed, then you know that you could run the risk of the dog having puppies.
Well, I had intentions of maybe breeding her, but I wasn't expecting it to happen the way it did.
In August of 2004, she had her first litter?
Yes, that's correct.
And is that the first time that Miss Malden helped you?
Yes, that is correct.
And tell me about that.
Well, I was at work, and I had another roommate at the time. And when she let me know that our dog, Zoe, was going to have puppies, and that she didn't know what to do, so she contacted Christy to help her out.
Well, you told me she called you at work.
She called me, right, to tell me, and
she called you at work, and what did you do, Miss Lopez?
I was going to come home, and she's like, I was going to come home. She said that she knows Heather. Heather's mom is good with dogs, so she's going to call Heather's mother and see if she would help her out. So she...
Why didn't you go home?
Because I was working and I couldn't... Because I had... My roommate told me that she was able to handle it, so I didn't go home.
How many puppies were delivered in August 2004?
There were 4.
All born alive?
Yes, all of them.
All of them survive?
Yes.
Did you sell all 4?
I sold 2.
What happened to the other 2?
The other 2 is a sad story.
Well, let me hear. I'm interested in sad stories. 4 were born alive. You sold 2. What happened to the other 2?
Okay, well,
Let's get the story, please. Are the other 2 alive or dead?
No, they died.
When did they die?
They died about 2 months after they were, or a month and a half after they were born.
Were they in your custody when they died?
They were.
Had they been taken to a vet up until that time? The answer is yes or no.
No.
Okay. So now you have puppies that are 6 weeks old that you didn't know how to deliver. 2 of them died after they reached a month and a half old. So that was clearly your fault.
No. It wasn't.
What did they die from?
Well, okay, again, I had to go to work, and it was hot. It was in the summer. So my air conditioner broke, and my dog, how do I explain this? Okay. It was really hot. My dog was, okay. I ended up putting, I had a doghouse outside on my patio, and I put my dog and the puppies outside at night because my air conditioner broke at night, and it was extremely hot. It was so extremely hot. Well, it was cooler night, so I put them outside, and again, my roommate and I agreed, that I would, that they would go outside. I'd go to work in the morning. She would go and take, and take them and bring them back in the house. Well, I went to work, and she ended up sleeping in, and I guess 2 of the puppies crawled out of their doghouse, and they died.
So again, it was somebody else's fault?
No, it was not somebody else's fault. It was my fault.
Good. Okay, now you should have understood, Miss Lopez, that breeding dogs was not for you.
I wasn't breeding them. It was an accident. It wasn't something...
An accident happens once.
Okay.
Then you take the dog to have the dog spayed.
Right.
You did not.
No, I did not.
So the dog got pregnant again. Do you want to tell me how that happened?
It was by the same dog. And it was the same way.
Same dog, same way. And you did the same thing. You called the defendant.
I called her this time, yes.
I said you called the defendant.
Yes.
I read your complaint, and you called her and said what?
And I told her, you know, my roommate trusted that you helped deliver Zoe's first litter, and I was like, I need to go to work again. And I asked her if I could bring Zoe over so that she could assist in making sure that she was okay, because I realized that her water broke. And so she, you know, I asked her and she agreed. So I went over there and I dropped Zoe off, and I told her that I would come back and, you know, check up on the puppy.
Well, when did you come back?
I went to work and then I came back the following day.
When did she have the puppies?
She had them that day.
What was the date?
It was January, it was about January 30th.
Is that the date?
Or so. It was
What's the date?
She brought them to my house on the 20th. She delivered the puppies the 21st in the evening.
She delivered the puppies on the 21st.
Yes, ma'am.
When did she come back?
Sunday.
Which is what date?
Well, that would be the 23rd.
3 days after she brought the dog to your house.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Miss Lopez, between August of 2004, when your dog had the first litter,
Right.
and January of 2005, how many vet visits did your dog have?
She had 2 vet visits.
You have the forms?
I don't have those.
What were the visits for?
It was just a checkup, that's it, getting her shots, and that was it.
What's the name of the vet?
The vet, I don't have that information.
How many dogs do you have?
I only have 1 dog.
Well, if you only have 1 dog, then it's not a problem with remembering the name of the vet. You remembered what happened in August of 2004 pretty much verbatim.
Right.
So just the name of the doctor.
I don't have that information, I'm sorry.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You certainly don't have any room up here to take care of yourself, a 5-year-old, a dog, and 8 puppies, because you couldn't figure out that doggy door was going to be open and closed and open and closed and open and closed. So you got to think about that.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Veronica Lopez says her former roommate's mother, Christy Malden, stole her dog Zoe and Zoe's litter of puppies. Christy says Veronica has no right to be a pet owner.
Okay, Ms. Malden, the plaintiff brought the dog to your house on the 20th of January. You delivered how many puppies?
4.
Were you aware of the fact that the plaintiff was responsible for the death of 2 of the puppies that you had delivered the previous summer?
Yes, ma'am. I was very upset when I found that out.
After you delivered the 4 puppies, and they were all born alive,
Yes, ma'am.
did they all survive?
Yes.
What happened with Zoe?
When Veronica called me on the 20th, she asked me if I could watch the dog. And I said, yes, I'm homesick today, so that'd be fine. I'll watch her for you. And she brought her over, and she said, I think her water broke. And so I watched her, and the dog, her water didn't break, but she kept throwing up. So that happened throughout the whole day on Thursday. Friday, she was pretty much the same, but she delivered the puppies. Started around 5:30 on the 21st in the evening, and she had a hard time with those, so I had to assist her in those, pulling the puppies out because she's so small and so weak.
Somebody have a picture of this dog?
Yes.
I'd like to see it.
Here's one of the babies too. That was when the puppies were 3 weeks old.
Okay. When did Zoe have to go to the vet?
Well, Sunday, Zoe started having diarrhea in the evening. By Monday, she was throwing up. I had put her in my bathroom with the babies and came back at lunch to check on them, and she was laying in both feces and nursing the puppies at the same time. Well, I then called Veronica and let her know, the situation, told her they needed to be taken to the vet. And she
You
said,
remember that phone call?
Yes, I do.
Did you rush home to take her to the vet?
I told her that I was going to come by and pick up the dog.
Did
I
you?
did not. No, I did not, because she didn't explain to me or go into detail on what exactly was happening.
I mean, is there something thick? She's had your dog the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. She had the dog when the dog delivered the puppies, when the dog was vomiting, which she told you about. She had the dog when the dog had the puppies. Now she's calling you and saying, there's a problem. The dog has to go to the vet.
Right. See, I went to her house. It was 2 days after Zoe, or a day after Zoe had the puppies. I went over to her house to go visit my dog and the puppies.
I'm talking to you about the day she called you and said the dog is sick.
Right. But there's more that goes to that, and
How old's your daughter?
she is 5 years old.
Have you ever gotten a call from school and what's your daughter's name?
Alexis.
Alexis. Alexis is sick, you have to come and get her.
Yes.
And you go after work?
And yes, I do.
You go after work, you say, you just hold her there, I'll be there when I can get there.
Yes, I do. I get off. No, I apologize. No, I don't. I don't tell her to hold on there. I get out of work and I go get my daughter. I apologize. I was missing.
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
Yes.
That's what this lady said. She said this dog is very ill and has to go to the vet.
I understand that.
What do you understand, Miss Lopez? What you have to understand at your age is you got enough on your plate without a dog.
Yeah.
You got enough on your plate taking care of yourself. Now you got enough on your plate taking care of yourself and a 5-year-old. You certainly don't have any room up here to take care of yourself, a 5-year-old, a dog, and 8 puppies, because you had 4, 2 you lost, and 2 more you had, because you couldn't figure out that that doggy door was going to be open and closed and open and closed and open and closed. So you got to think about that. You didn't use your brains to think about spaying the dog when you were supposed to. The dog got pregnant, had puppies. Because of your neglect, 2 died. So it would seem to me somebody in their right mind would say, listen, I better have this dog spayed now or move to a house that didn't have a doggy door. Not you. You kept the dog. You kept the doggy door. And what do you know? Neighbor's dog comes in again, and once again your dog is pregnant. And you are running to work. So you call somebody else to clean up after you.
Well, I was working, and she called me and she told me she had already taken her to the vet.
No.
This is after the conversation.
No. You said I'll be there.
Right.
Did you leave work?
No, I did not leave work.
What time do you get off from work?
Sometime in the afternoon, late afternoon.
Your Honor.
So you had no intention of going over there?
No, I did.
Did you go and say, I have to leave work? Like,
Veronica Lopez claims her former roommate's mother, Christy Malden, stole her dog Zoe and gave away Zoe's litter of puppies.
what was the vet bill for Zoe?
It was $1,900.
Can I see what they had to do with the dog,
$1,009.88. Those are the doctor's notes.
They had to give your dog an IV catheter replacement, fluid therapy, fluid additives, plasma transfusion.
She had to have a
Dog
blood
was
transfusion.
hospitalized, spayed.
The dog was severely malnutritioned.
A dog that is malnutrition doesn't have 4 healthy puppies. My dog was well loved.
Two men may concern. Zoe is a 2-year-old female terrier. She had given birth 2 days prior. She had been vomiting throughout the day and was in a moribund state. She had a fever, a life-threatening low blood calcium, and had lost 1/2 of her red blood cells. Saving her life required 4 days of hospitalization, a blood transfusion, a plasma transfusion, and abdominal surgery to remove her uterus that was continuing to bleed postpartum.
And I'm not denying any of that information. I know that my dog needed help. But the thing is okay, the first day I went to Miss Malden's house to go look at my dog and the puppies, I saw that they were in good care. I did. I saw that they were in great care. And I mentioned to Heather, for your mom doing, this good deed and whatever, I want to offer her one of the puppies. The first thing that she mentioned was that my mom doesn't want one of the puppies, she wants Zoe.
Well, because Zoe was the neglected one. Miss Lopez, listen to me very carefully, madam.
Yes.
Did you pay her the $1,000 that she spent at the vet?
No, because I didn't have $1,000. And that
Well, you didn't have $1,000. Where did she get $1,000 from?
She didn't, and that's not. I told her, okay, after she mentioned that, the next day, the following day, after I had the conversation with Miss Malden at work, she told me she was going to take her to the vet, and I told her that I was going to go ahead and take care of it. I was going to take Zoe to the vet myself.
A vet whose name you can't remember. Did you give her back the $1,000? She paid the bill. The answer is
no.
no. Good. Where are the puppies?
I sold them after they turned 6 weeks old.
Okay. How much did you get for the puppies?
I got $300 for 2 of them, $200 for 2 of them, and then I sold Zoe for $300.
Who did you sell Zoe to?
I don't know who they were. I did screen the homes, though.
I don't know if I believe that, Miss Malden.
I don't, really, I don't.
I read the complaint. I read your answer. And I am, quite frankly, sympathetic with your position. But legally, you had no right to sell her dog. You understand that?
Yes.
She has no right to have a dog.
This is correct.
She doesn't know how to take care of them.
Right.
She's neglectful. She has a very full plate. And she has no right to act irresponsibly.
Right.
She caused the death of 2 puppies. She almost caused the death of Zoe because of her neglect. And she was perfectly happy to have somebody else pick up the slack for her. She is not a person who's responsible enough to have a pet.
Right.
But that doesn't give you the legal right to dispose of her dog. So the only thing that I have to come up with is, what are Miss Lopez's damages? Because for every lawsuit, there has to be damage.
Yes, ma'am.
I've already decided that legally you had absolutely no right to dispose of her dog.
Well, Your Honor,
Don't say anything to me.
Can I just...
Ms. Lopez, listen to me very carefully. I've just told you that the defendant had absolutely no right to, legally,
but
to
she was
sell
already
your dog.
trying to convince me to give up my dog.
Absolutely. Because you have no right to have a dog.
No.
Listen, I just told you, there isn't enough up here to take care of yourself. You have yourself and you have a 5-year-old daughter. You have no right adding to your plate a helpless animal that requires somebody else to do a little thinking for it, like spaying it so it doesn't become pregnant twice in 1 year, not taking puppies in out of the sun when it's 90 degrees outside, needs somebody else to think about taking care of them. You don't have that kind of time. I give you credit for working 2 jobs. I give you credit for being a single mom and taking care of a 5-year-old and working to take care of yourself. You have no right to have a dog. You don't have time. You don't have time to make that commitment. And the only thing is I have to figure out what your damages were. She took over your dog. She had, on $1 profit, she had $300 that she made, in addition to what she spent on your dogs at the vet. But she also took care of your dog and your puppies for 8 weeks, where you did zippo. No, I'm speaking zippo. Nothing. And as far as I'm concerned, her time in taking care of your pets have to be worth something. If your puppies were with you and you had to tube feed them for 2 weeks, you would have had to take off from work to do that. Otherwise, you would have neglected them and turned them over to your roommate who let 2 of them fry out in the sun, which would have been an unsatisfactory resolution. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I believe I was in the wrong for selling Zoe.
My dog was well cared for.
Assistant Christopher Miller is suing his ex-girlfriend, 23-year-old cashier Jessica Welch, for having him falsely arrested for assault. Jessica claims Christopher bit her.
All rise. Yes, case number 15 on the calendar, the matter of Miller versus Welch. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am.
Mr. Miller, it is your claim that the defendant, who was living in your home, along with her mother and her child, filed false charges against you for domestic violence. You want to be compensated with the return of your bail and some additional amount of money to compensate you for what you went through. The defendant says that she filed for a protective order because the ultimate reason was you called her 3-year-old some bad names, right?
Yes.
How did she come to be in your house?
Ma'am, Jessica Welch and I had a relationship. Our relationship started the ending of September, beginning of October. She moved in, ma'am.
Why did she move in?
We had a relationship. I was physically attracted to her. We talked a lot, had a lot of things in common, ma'am. My wife moved out.
When did your wife move out?
About the end of September.
Okay, so your wife moved out in September. You began a relationship with the defendant, and when did she move in?
Beginning of October, ma'am.
Don't like to be alone?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Miller?
No, ma'am.
Are you living alone now?
No, ma'am. I'm back with my wife, and we're working things through.
Good. You still didn't tell me why she moved in.
She was living with her stepfather, ma'am, and I guess her stepfather was doing a lot of yelling. It was a bad environment for her son, CJ.
So that's why you allowed her to move into your house, plus the fact that you liked her.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right so far, Miss Welch?
Yes.
You had been living previously with your mother,
My mother and stepfather, yes.
and they weren't getting along.
No.
Do you work?
Yes, I do.
Did you work then?
Yes.
What kind of work did you do?
I'm a clerk at a convenience store,
Full-time, part-time?
full-time.
And your mother?
She works for a big satellite company.
Tell me about why you filed for a protective order against him.
There was an argument that Chris and I had.
When?
Right before Thanksgiving. It's the end of November.
Okay.
He had been drinking. He had argued with his wife on the telephone. He was promising to take her out for their anniversary. And being as they were separated, I didn't agree with that. We got into an argument about it. As I turned to walk away, he came after me. He ran after me and grabbed me and knocked me down to the floor.
Shh. Mr. Miller, I know you want to respond. You're going to have an opportunity to do that. Came from behind you.
He grabbed me from behind and knocked me down to the floor. I ended up went into the bathroom to cry because...
Well, what happened after he knocked you down to the floor?
After he knocked me down to the floor, he went back into the kitchen because my mother got into the middle of it. My mother watched and she separated us.
Were you arguing with each other?
Yes, we were.
Were you physical with him?
No, I wasn't. I turned and walked away from him.
Did you say anything to him?
No, I was like, I'm done. I just turned and walked away.
Okay. That was in November.
Yes. And then later that evening, we went to bed. I was putting blankets and pillows in between us so that we didn't touch while we were sleeping. And he leaned over and bit me on the left breast.
And where did you sleep that night?
I ended up sleeping on the floor that night.
And the night after?
And the night after was back in the bed with him.
Well, what happened the next day?
The next day, he said he didn't remember. He had been drinking a lot. I tried to tell him what happened. He just blew me off and ignored me. He just did not remember.
Well, that's November. Did you stay together in December?
No. Monday after the incident occurred, I got a restraining order. And
you got a restraining order when?
I got a restraining order the end of November.
I'd like to see it, please. Now, one of my questions to you is, you moved into his home.
Yes.
You, in effect, had him kicked out of his own house. Why didn't you and your mother and your kid leave?
At that time, we didn't have any money because we paid off the rest of his deposit when he invited us to move in, and he added our names to the lease.
Mr. Miller, you
Yes, ma'am.
added her name to the lease?
Yes, I did, ma'am.
That was very stupid.
Yes, it was, ma'am.
What was that Forrest Gump line, Byrd? Stupid is as stupid does?
That's the one.
Right. Okay. Now, he wasn't arrested on this domestic violence charge. He was arrested for outstanding warrants that he had when you filed the complaint. What kind of warrants did you have, Mr. Miller?
Misdemeanor, ma'am. They were being intoxicated in public and in public.
You didn't learn not to drink, Mr. Miller?
Yes, ma'am. I go to classes now. Yes.
Should have gone to classes back in November.
I was doing that, actually.
Not successfully?
No, ma'am.
Okay. This case was ultimately dismissed.
The
Yes, ma'am.
assault case was, yes.
How come, Miss Welch?
But because pretty much he got my boss, my ex-boss, and old co-worker to lie for him.
You mean this case was tried?
Wasn't tried after the prosecuting attorney talked to the witnesses he had. She didn't feel that it was necessary to move forward because if we went to jury, we wouldn't have got anywhere because it was an attack on my character.
But this is the case on which you base your complaint. Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Because she had you arrested not at the time of this incident before Thanksgiving, but she waited. Isn't that right, Miss Welch? Because when you called the police because he said bad things to your son. You had not gone to the police with regard to this incident where he pushed you and bit you, according to you. You did not go to the police until, according to you, he said some things to your son that you didn't like, and then you decided to go to the police and report the domestic violence. Isn't that what I read?
That's pretty much what you read, because if he's calling my son names...
Exactly. I just answered my question, my dear. It wasn't until after he called your son a name that you went to the police and complained about this incident that it happened days before. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now tell me about the incident involving your son.
We were sitting there, he'd been drinking the whole day again. My son was playing, and he called him stupid, called him retarded. And I know if he's calling my son names, he's going to hit my son next. He hit me. It ain't going to happen. Nobody's going to touch my son.
Well, he didn't touch him, did he?
No, he didn't. But if he has the audacity to call my son stupid and retarded, this is also the same man that has the audacity to assault a woman. He has the audacity to assault a child, too.
Why didn't you move?
I had nowhere to go. I don't have family in Idaho.
Well, listen to me. You know this man for a couple of months. This man isn't your life. You're there with your mother. Go to a shelter. I mean, why are you staying there? This isn't your husband. You don't have a child together. You don't have a life together. He had a house. You needed a place to stay. Mr. Miller says that you moved a friend into the house. Is that true?
No, I did not.
Did you have a friend come to stay with you for a period of time, Miss Welch?
I had...
Just look at me. Don't look at him. Look at me.
I had a friend stay for a couple of weeks.
And the friend's name?
His name is Tony.
Tony what? And how long do you know Tony?
I'd known him before Chris. I'd known him for about 5 months.
Where did you know him from?
From the same place I met Chris, work.
And why did you invite him to stay at a house?
He had just gotten out of jail. He came, he came and he needed a place to stay, so I let him stay.
Was Mr. Miller in agreement with that?
He said that first night that Tony stayed that yes, he was in agreement with it.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Ma'am, she moved Tony in. I was not aware it was her ex-boyfriend.
Look at me. Don't look at her.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry. Apologize. Ma'am, it was her ex-boyfriend. He came on the 12th, on Friday, when this assault supposedly was supposed to happen, ma'am. On the 14th, I came to her and asked, why is he still there? She told me he got a job, he will be moving out. On the 14th, that's when the cops came to arrest me, ma'am. When I was arrested, she got a restraining order. As soon as I left the jail, I bailed out, ma'am. I was no longer welcome back in my home.
Where was Tony?
living there, man, in my bedroom. And I do have a letter saying that...
Don't tell me a letter. I don't do letter.
Oh, ma'am, it's a letter from her to Tony. Sorry.
Oh, letter from her?
To Tony.
That I'll see. Show this to the defendant, would you? What date did you write that?
It was February of this year.
Where were you living?
I was living in the house where I'm still currently residing, where Mr. Miller moved out of.
So you're still there?
Yes.
Can I have that note back, please? How come you're still there?
My mom and I are trying to save up enough money to find a new place to live. It's kind of hard. We're having a little trouble getting the money up.
So
to
Tony's
find a
sort of
place.
helping you?
No, Tony's no longer around.
When did he leave?
Tony left, it had to be March this year. He wasn't living in the house. He had his own place, and I was going to move in with him, but I found out he's been hanging out with Mr. Miller, so I decided that was not the best.
You have a 3-year-old child?
Yes.
Why don't you grow up? Why don't you grow up?
I'm working on that.
You're not working hard enough. You keep picking losers. That's your business. If Mr. Miller is honest with himself, and right now he is probably clean and sober, he knows that he's not a winner. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Miller?
Yes, that is a very fair statement, ma'am.
And clearly Tony, who just got released from prison and needed a place to stay, is also not a winner. And you and your mother, who didn't have a place to stay, 2 adult women with jobs, who couldn't find a safe place to stay for their 3-year-old son and grandson, clearly are not winners. You better grow up.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
After 72 hours, it's not toxic.
Well, did your bird die within 72 hours?
It died immediately of him standing with the process.
Well, then what I'm telling you, madam, is you should have taken your animals out of the house.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Christopher Miller says ex-girlfriend Jessica Welch took out a false restraining order against him. Jessica claims Christopher physically abused her and verbally abused her young son.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, ma'am.
You probably don't remember what happened the night in November when things got a little tacky with Miss Welch. There isn't a question in my mind that she used you. There is also not a question in my mind that the reason you called the police, Miss Welch, is that you wanted him out of the house so that Tony could be there unencumbered. Not that he called your son stupid, but that he had already told you. Tony was going. And Tony didn't go. Tony stayed, according to you, for 2 weeks after he was out of the house. At least 2 weeks. So I think you had an ulterior motive for calling the police on him and having him arrested and having him removed from his house. Mr. Miller, I think that your conduct in getting sloshed and not acting appropriately didn't help things. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
But I don't think that Miss Welch filed for a protective order because she was legitimately afraid of you, which is the only reason that you filed for a protective order. Not for another reason, not because you want an apartment, you want a house, you want him out so that you can bring another boyfriend. And those aren't legitimate reasons for filing for a protective order because you've sworn in your application for a protective order that you are in fear. And you weren't in fear. You were only in fear if the 2 men stayed in the house with you at the same time. So, Mr. Miller, I think that you behaved probably a little bit badly. But certainly that was not the reason that she called the police. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of bail, $1,000. That's all.
Why did y'all excuse you? Next step out.
Her boss, her co-worker, and her ex-boyfriend was on my side, too.
He wins again.
Even the good guys win at times.
I have a good heart and I'm a good person.
Judge Judy's the bomb.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lovick versus Nunez, step forward, please.
Real estate agent Donna Levick is suing business owner Jack Nunez for the cost to replace 3 parrots. Donna says the birds died after Jack sanded her floors.
Miss Lovick, how old are you?
35.
What do you do for a living?
I sell real estate.
How long have you been a real estate agent?
Almost 4 years.
Do you have any college degrees behind you?
No degrees, but I have 2 years of junior college.
And your husband?
He's a deputy sheriff.
You have ongoing training?
Yes, ma'am.
And you, sir, what do you do for a living?
I'm a tile contractor
How long have you been doing that?
since '73.
Okay, now let's get to the case. Miss Lovick, you had 3 parrots. How long had you had them?
My oldest African gray I had for approximately 15, 16 years.
And what's their life expectancy?
40 to 60 years.
And the other 2?
My Siberian macaw I had for about 3.5 years, and also for my Timna.
And this is what the lawsuit is about. You hired Mr. Nunez to come in and sand your floors in your house and seal them. And he did that.
Correct.
And your parrots died.
Correct.
So you want him to pay for your parrots, their vet bills, the casket, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
What did you do in preparation to your house to have your floors sanded?
We didn't do anything. We just took the birds outside.
When you sand floors, what comes up?
Generally dust, but he was using a wet sander, so you don't see dust particles flying all over.
So you're telling me there wasn't any dust in your house?
My birds, I had taken them outside.
I'm not asking you about your birds now. I'm just asking you generally.
Oh.
When you sand floors, there's usually
Dust.
dust. You don't have to be a college graduate to figure that out. 35-year-old real estate agent with 2 years of college could figure that out, that you have dust. And when you seal the floors after the sanding, they seal it with,
Chemicals.
and the chemicals usually,
Toxic.
don't know toxic, but they usually smell.
Yes.
And they do have places where you can board animals while you're doing things in the house, just as if you were going away. Who are you?
I'm Donna's mother, and I was.
Do you
there.
live with them?
No, I don't.
You have your own house?
Yes, I do.
Could have taken your birds to your mother's house. You chose to keep your birds home. One, I understand from your complaint, died outside. Two of them, however, died in the house. That's your fault. That's not his fault. If you had a baby, do you have children?
I do, and she was also in the house.
Well,
we were
then
outside.
there's something clearly wrong
We
with
were
you.
outside when this happened. We had gone outside, and they opened the windows. My birds were on the patio outside of what we thought was harm's way. He never told us that there'd be a toxic gas. You could not smell the dust. You couldn't see the dust in the air.
Why were you outside?
Because it was a nice day, and we were trying to stay out of their way.
Well, if that's the only reason that you were staying outside, I'm glad your child is well. You have to accept responsibility. This was your fault, not his fault, because if you're having somebody come in and whip up dust, whether you use a wet process or a dry process, it whips up dust. When you seal it, it stinks.
It was already sealed, and we went to the
Now,
manufacturers.
listen.
After 72 hours, it's not toxic.
Well, did your bird die within 72 hours?
They died immediately of him standing the process.
Well, then what I'm telling you, madam, is you should have taken your animals out of the house. That's your responsibility. And if you didn't take them far enough away from the house, that's your responsibility. That's not
It's his
Mr.
responsibility
Nunez's
to tell me the
responsibility.
dangers
Miss
of-
Lovick, it's harder to accept responsibility for the death of your birds than it is to blame it on somebody else. Life starts with accepting responsibility. It's your fault.
I tried to expect responsibility for the death of my birds. I only asked for him to pay the vet bill. There's
Just a
no way.
second, if you accept responsibility.
He agreed to pay my vet bill.
I'm speaking. If you accept responsibility for the death of your birds, he doesn't pay anything.
He never once mentioned that there was a toxic chemical or gas that could be released from sanding our floors. The birds were outside. They opened the windows, and that's what exposed the birds to the fumes and the silica.
Miss Lovick, accept responsibility. It's your fault. Goodbye.
Husband's friend, 25-year-old Heather Duncan, for causing her and her wedding party to be kicked off an airplane. Alicia claims she had to cancel her wedding.
Now, this is case number 104 on the calendar, the matter of Byrd versus Duncan. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Miss Burden, you were supposed to be married in Las Vegas. And according to your complaint, the defendant was a guest of a member of your wedding party. You were all supposed to be traveling from one place to another by plane. Where were you coming from?
We came from Flint, Michigan.
And you were going to Las Vegas?
Las Vegas.
Your complaint alleges that Miss Duncan, while you were waiting for the plane in Michigan, I assume.
In Atlanta.
That was a layover? Got drunk. And because she was drunk and unruly, your entire wedding party was thrown off the plane. You missed your wedding. All your deposits were lost. You're still not married, all because of her bad behavior.
That's true.
That's what you allege. Okay, so you hadn't met her before?
No.
Who was she the guest of?
My cousin Tiara.
Is she here today?
Yes, she is.
That's Tiara. Okay, so tell me the story. I'm listening.
We got to Atlanta, and we were going to get on the next plane to get to Las Vegas. AirTran had overbooked each flight 15 to 20 people, so we had to wait for the next flight. That was at 9 o'clock in the morning. The second flight was at 11:25. We're on standby, so we're on a list.
Why were you on standby?
That's the buddy passes, they're standby tickets.
How many buddy passes did you have?
I had, for me and my fiance, his uncle and aunt, and my cousin and her two friends.
Where did you get them from?
Ibrahim, a friend of the family.
Ibrahim.
That's
He's
you.
here as a witness, too.
What's your last name, sir?
Abdul Rahim.
Mr. Rahim. Where did you get these buddy passes
I
from?
work for the airline. We get 6 buddy passes a year. Once Tiara said that she had a cousin going to get married, I tried to help him out. So I got them from 2 other friends that work for AirTran.
So you get 6 per year. How much do you pay for them?
They're $50.
So it's $350.
Yes.
Okay. Sit down. Okay, go ahead.
So my fiance's uncle and aunt got on the plane. We had to wait for the 7:45 flight. My cousin Tiara and her friends decided to go drinking in the airport. Me and my fiance slept for a while, and then we woke up about 3. We were looking for them, and they were downstairs at a bar. They had already drank a bar tab of $79, and Heather and her friend left with this guy they met at the bar. They got back about 7, and we just made it up there in time to get on the 7:45 plane. The flight attendant said there was 5 seats left, and there was just 5 of us, but she miscounted. There was only 4 seats.
Okay, so there was one person who had to get off.
Yeah, but Miss Duncan was hollering and cursing at her, so she made everybody get off the plane. So we all get off the plane, and Heather's still at the bottom of the ramp arguing with this woman. The lady's closing the door. She's trying to open the door, and we're all walking up the ramp, and she's still down there arguing. So my fiance goes down there and tells her, come on, we have to go because the ramp's closed, and you can feel it pulling back. She takes off walking. We meet back up with her at the baggage claim, and she started cursing at the lady in the baggage claim, telling her that she's never been treated like that before, and she flies here and there. But we're on standby. You can't act a fool when you're on standby because you represent the person that gets you the ticket. So after I fill out my claim, I go outside, step outside for a cigarette. She comes running past me saying, stall the police, they're after me, and takes off. I'm sitting there like, what's going on? So I go back in. They got U.S. Homeland Security there, Atlanta police there, the airport police. They're looking for her. She calls my cousin on the phone telling her she's laying in the back of somebody's truck. And that's where it all went from there. So we had to call the reservations in the morning to see if we can get put on the next flight in the morning to go to Vegas. They canceled our tickets because of her actions. We had to purchase new tickets to go home. It was a mess.
It was a mess.
Yeah, a disaster.
Okay. You remember what happened that day?
I do.
You remember everything that happened that day, Miss Duncan?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you drunk?
We had all been to the bar. We had all
I
been
didn't ask
drinking.
about anybody else. I only asked about you. Were you drunk?
I was not over my limit, no, ma'am.
You think you were able to drive a car?
No, I would not have drove a car, no, ma'am.
Well, then you were drunk. Then you were legally drunk if you would not have driven a car. Did you create a scene on the plane?
I did not.
Tell me what happened on the plane.
Well, we were on standby all day, like she said.
That's right. You were on standby all day, and now you're on, and they tell us one person
Didn't get
that
on
they
the
have to
first
get off.
flight. The second flight, 11:30 flight.
Get to the 7:45 flight.
Well, it's very pertinent to the situation because her fiancé was cleared, got off, which made 5 people that now needed to board the last flight.
So there was an extra seat on the 11:30 flight.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
But you wanted to travel with your fiancé.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why didn't somebody else get on that flight?
By then, the ramp, they had unlocked the doors, and once you came out of the door, you could not go back in there after they shut and locked them.
Should have let him go. Then you wouldn't have had trouble, right?
But he came back looking for me.
I got it, Miss Burden. All I'm saying is if he had gone to Vegas, you all would have been in Vegas by that night, right? You know, Miss Drunk Out of Her Mind and all the other people who were drinking would have gotten there. Go ahead.
So the last flight out, 7:45 flight, 4 seats available. She says 4 of us can stay on the flight. 1 person's going to have to stay. Because of all the confusion, we all were turned off that flight. It came down to the last minute. At the door, she's still saying, we have to go. 4 of you can stay on the plane. 1 of you has to go. And all the confusion, we all were escorted off that plane.
Well, the confusion, Miss Burden suggests, is because of your bad behavior.
That is not true.
Were you on the plane?
Yes, ma'am.
Your last name is?
Island.
Tell me about her behavior.
When we got on the plane, we knew that there was 5 seats where there was supposed to be 5 seats available. The lady tells us that there's only 4 seats available. So when I find out there's 4 seats, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get off, even though I know that these are my cousins, the whole reason we're going, but there's 4 people that can go, and I knew that I would be able to get there in the morning. So I was like, I can just get off the plane. Heather grabs me and says, no, don't get off the plane. She's still trying to converse with the lady, and there's only 4 seats available. There was no way that there was going to be another seat, and there was another lady. She was trying to get her bags into the overhead compartment, and we're all trying to help her get the bags. Heather tells me to go sit in the lady's seat, and I'm like, why would I send her seat? She already has a seat, you know what I'm saying? So that's really what happened on the plane.
Good. You can sit down. You can stand up, sir. Why have you not yet married?
Money-wise, we saved for a whole year to go to Vegas to get married.
Well, what kind of deposits did you have there?
I have receipts for everything that I put a deposit on and paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And I have police reports and statements from the Atlanta Police Department and Air
I'd like to
Train
see the
Airways.
police report, please.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I think that when you cause somebody that kind of aggravation, there has to be some punitive action.
I honestly don't feel so. The fact
Well, I don't give a rat's behind what you think.
And later today,
I did not have enough money to pay the whole
Why did you
rent.
get a job?
I did get a job.
Well, if you had a job and you're getting welfare and you're getting some child support, what did you have to ask for charity for?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Alicia Burden claims her cousin's friend, Heather Duncan, caused her and her wedding party to be kicked off an airplane. Alicia says she had to cancel her wedding.
Well, this is a letter from AirTran Airways, directed to this gentleman who was employed by them, and it says, this is to notify you that your non-revenue and reduced rate travel privileges have been suspended for 180 days. This action is being taken as a result of an investigation into an incident concerning an individual traveling on your buddy pass under itinerary whatever. The individual in question is Miss Heather Duncan, that would be you, exhibited unprofessional and abusive conduct both towards our passengers and your fellow crew members. And you are responsible for all actions for your guest passenger, and you are responsible for notifying your past traveler of all policy and procedures. Well, you don't have to be notified to how to behave like a human being. They found that your conduct caused him to lose his privileges for 180 days. Can't hold your booze. And then the woman down at the luggage department says that you threw a pen and paper at her. You behaved very badly, Miss Duncan.
We had been at the airport for 13 hours. We were all very frustrated.
Nobody else caused the same kind of scene that you did.
That's right. We were all very frustrated. Everybody was crying. Everybody was cussing. Our luggage was gone. I was the one that had to step up, talk to the lady about the luggage.
No,
and
no,
I did.
You didn't talk to anybody.
I did.
You were
I lost my
screaming
temper.
profanity, and you lost your temper, and you threw a pen at her, and you threw paper at her. But I'm not so sure, Miss Burden, that all of you were thrown off because of her conduct.
Our tickets were canceled because of her.
You mean your buddy pass tickets?
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to go to Vegas, you would have had to buy a ticket, purchase a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you do that?
We wouldn't have had no money to get home.
What kind of work do you do?
I pack parts.
And you?
I'm a homemaker.
You are home together?
Yeah, we live together.
How long have you lived together?
About
8 years.
Yeah.
8 years. You have children, I assume?
Yes.
How many?
3.
Well, so there's no real big rush about getting married. This is not a, this is a marriage that's been coming on for 8 years.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with getting married in Michigan?
That's what we're going to do now.
Good. That's what you should do now.
Yeah.
You caused them a lot of aggravation, Miss Duncan. And I think that when you cause somebody that kind of aggravation, because you couldn't control your actions, there has to be some punitive action that's available.
I honestly don't feel so. The fact
Well,
of
I don't give a rat's behind what you think. This is not a touchy-feely situation, madam. They planned this day, planned to be in Las Vegas, planned to have a wedding, and because of your bad behavior, they weren't able to do that. And I think that you are responsible for some of the pain and suffering, although I usually don't even like to entertain those lawsuits because of your bad behavior. Not only that, but you caused him aggravation as well. You were the only stranger to this wedding party, and you didn't behave yourself. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well, she did the best job she could, so, ain't really nothing I can do but keep it moving.
It was very upsetting. I didn't get married.
They should have gotten on the plane, and everything would have been fine.
She got issues and problems that she needs to seek counseling about.
They just wanted money. They got what they wanted, so, keep it moving.
The drunk ain't worth a piece of gum on the bottom of my shoe.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Acree versus Jones. Step forward, please.
28-year-old Karen Acree is suing her ex-boyfriend, Donald Jones, for rent and utility bills. Donald is countersuing for rent, lost wages, and a loan to get her stereo out of pawn.
Miss Acree, according to your complaint, you and Mr. Jones lived together for a period of time in a lease that you both signed.
That is correct.
There was a problem with an altercation that the two of you had. He was put out of the apartment. You claim he owes you some bills, some rent and utilities. Mr. Jones says that he paid up while he was living there. Once he was put out of the apartment, he has no intention of paying for rent and utilities. And he claims that you actually owe him money for some loans and assorted stuff. So he has a counterclaim. When did you move in together?
In July of 2004.
What was the rent on the apartment?
$650.
Who moved in?
Both of us did.
Anybody else?
My daughter.
So the three of you moved in?
Yes, she's 5 years old.
You get child support for her?
Barely, but yes.
What was the financial arrangements you had with Mr. Jones?
He signed the lease as well, and he would be paying half of the rent.
Was that your arrangement, Mr. Jones?
Correct.
Where were you working at the time, Miss Acree?
I was in and out of jobs. I was working through temp agencies.
So you weren't working steadily?
No.
And what about you, Mr. Jones?
I work for a county road and bridge department, 10, 12-hour days.
Steadily?
Yes,
How much were you earning, Mr. Jones?
$1,200 a month.
And how did you put your money into the rent?
Every 2 weeks I cash my check, and since she was home during the day, she would take care of the bills. I'd just give her money.
Is that right?
That is not correct, Your Honor.
Well, tell me how you were paying your bills if you weren't working full-time.
I was paying it through TANF, which is temporary aid for families in need, and that's what I get each month. And then
You get
I would
welfare?
get, yes.
Well, that's an easier term. Let me ask you this question, Ms. Acree. Why in the world would I award you any money from Mr. Jones when the state was paying your rent?
Because he did not pay his share like he was supposed to.
That's not correct.
Okay. What happened in October?
October, he got physically violent with me, threw a cell phone at me, bruised me. I had to call 911 because this happened in front of my child.
So that was in October?
Yes.
October what?
October 10th.
You filed for protective order?
Yes.
What happened with that protective order?
That got dropped.
By whom? What do you mean
By
got
me.
dropped? You dropped it?
Yes.
Why?
Because of the fact that after he had been in jail, he had to go to domestic violence classes, and we went to court and everything. I figured everything was okay.
Did you let him back into the house?
I told him he could come back into the house, yes.
Did he come back into the house?
Yes. In December.
How long?
Until I got evicted in February.
Did you stay with her in January and February?
No, I didn't. I moved out of our apartment on the 10th to my parents' house. And
10th of October?
Correct.
Were you put out by the police, Mr. Jones?
I was arrested there at the apartment.
How long did you stay in jail in October?
2 days.
Did you move back with Miss Acree?
No, ma'am.
You did not?
No, I live with my parents. And in November, she contacted my parents' church trying to borrow money to pay her rent, in which case my dad was contacted by the church because my name was on the lease as well.
And you asked for some money?
From a church, yes, I did.
Why?
Because of the fact I did not have enough money to pay the whole
Why did you
rent.
get a job?
I did get a job.
Well, if you had a job and you're getting welfare and you're getting some child support, what did you have to ask for charity for?
Because at the time I did not have a steady job, but I
So
did
you didn't
after
have a
that.
job. Where are you working now?
Now I'm working at a gas station 40 hours a week.
When did you start this job?
A month ago.
And the previous job?
I had for a couple months until he got me fired from it.
Miss Acree, how long had you been receiving welfare to pay your rent?
For about a year.
Before you met him?
Yes.
So it wasn't because of him that you were in this
No.
financial position?
No, I was in school.
School to learn what?
Accounting.
And?
And I have a degree.
You have a degree in accounting and you're working at a gas station.
Yeah, I
Something
know.
doesn't balance out here, Miss Acree. Why don't you get a job with H&R Block instead of getting a job at a gas station?
Because I'd rather not work at H&R Block, but that's...
You'd rather work at a gas station. So what did you go to school for accounting for?
Because I wanted a degree.
Okay, let me hear about your counterclaim.
Okay, first off, not only did I pay her bills and her rent, she had a car payment that I was helping her out with, cell phone bills also. She worked for a month and a half through the 6 months we were together at that apartment. She also asked me for a loan of $150 to get a car stereo out of a pawn shop.
Which
so I
is
gave
not
her,
true.
So I gave her the $150.
When did you do that?
Do you have the month on that?
No. Don't ask her.
I don't know. I don't have that.
Your Honor, I have the proof right here that it was not $150 and he went with me to the pawn shop. It was $54.
What month?
In March.
March of what year?
This year, 2005.
What were you doing going to the pawn shop with him in March to get your stereo out of Hock?
I got it out this year because of the fact that I had to put it in there to make the rest of a car payment.
What I don't understand is if you're not together with him, why do you call him to help you get something out of a pawn shop?
He was calling me, actually, and he asked me, he told me he didn't want me to lose it. And I said, okay, well, it's $54 to get it out. And he said, okay, let's go get it out.
How did you come to go with her to the pawn shop in March?
I didn't go through the pawn shop. She asked me to borrow money, as she has multiple times.
Then you shouldn't lend her money, Mr. Jones.
I'm a slow learner on that one, I guess.
Ms. Acree, I don't believe he owes you a dime for rent. I believe that he worked. You did not. I believe that he contributed to the household. You did not. Now, if you had a job all that
But
time...
I did. I worked at Kodak, and I
show,
worked...
Show me proof that you worked anywhere. Show me proof. You're not entitled to any money, Ms. Acree. And Mr. Jones, have you learned your lesson?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Goodbye. Your counterclaim's dismissed.
Pardon, Judge. Please, you may step
Mother of his child, Starla Reed, for loans for rent and tuition. Starla says Roland owes thousands in back child support.
Order. All rise. Yes, case number 116 on the calendar in the matter of Burkhart versus Reed. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. And have a seat.
Mr. Burkhart, you and Miss Reed had a relationship and you have a child together. Is that right?
Yes, 5-year-old Michaela.
Your complaint alleges that you made 2 loans to Miss Reed over a year ago. And in addition to that, she took out a small amount of money, $100 and some odd from a bank account that she should not have, also over a year ago. So far correct?
So far correct.
That you did not pursue this matter during the past year because there were open criminal charges against you for assaulting Miss Reed. You wanted to wait until that case had been resolved before you pursued these loans.
Yes, ma'am.
You were, several weeks ago, convicted after a jury trial
Yes, ma'am.
of assaulting Miss Reed, and now that that has been resolved, you want your money.
Yes.
Miss Reed says that that money was given to her in lieu of child support, and you are currently thousands of dollars in arrears on your child support. One was for college tuition, $975, and one was for rent, $400 for rent. Is that right?
Yes.
Miss Reed? And that she did close out a bank account. The bank account was in her name.
Yes.
So she had the right to close it out. And you are still thousands of dollars in arrears in child support. That's your defense.
Yes.
When was the first alleged loan, Mr. Burkhart?
Back in March of '04.
What was it for?
She came to me and asked me for help. She was taking college courses, and as you know, when you go to college, if you're only taking a single course, you're not eligible for TAP or Pell. So she needed the money for the college course. And then a month later, she needed money for the rent, and I said, that's fine too. You know, I would help her out with that I would loan her the money for that.
And that's really what you're suing for, as far as the loans are concerned.
Well, yeah, and the 192, I was a trustee. See, I'm disabled, and we wanted to set up a bank account so our daughter Michaela could get the money. Then she found out that I had by accident, $18,000 of disability, a Social Security disability that I got put into that account by mistake because I was a trustee. They seen my name. So one day I get this call. She's crying about, oh, you got $18,000. Why wasn't I given any of this? It was my disability. It had nothing to do with hers. As far as this money being towards support, if you look at the support.
Just a second.
Okay.
She took $192.
She closed the account out. That's what the balance was when she closed it.
And when was the last time you lived together?
It was around the year 2000. Because Michaela was born, and 6 months later she attacked me. I had just had my knee replaced, and I asked her to leave because we weren't getting along. She was getting too violent.
I didn't ask you to go into that. I'm really not interested. 2000.
Yeah.
And has your daughter remained in Miss Reed's custody since?
No.
She was in your custody or in somebody else's custody?
In my custody for 4 years. I had her from Sunday to Friday, and then most of the weekends that she would go out with other people.
Okay, and she would go with her mother?
For the weekend.
For the weekend?
Yes.
Now, was that pursuant to a court order?
No, that was just, she was working, I was disabled, so it was convenient. So for 4 years I did that.
Until when?
Until last year around, it was like June or July. She took me to court for support, and the judge said, I can't give you support. He's got her from Sunday to Friday.
June or July of last year, 2004?
Right. So when she
when
found
was this
out,
alleged assault? When was the assault?
that was over a year ago, about a year.
When?
That was around a little after March, a little after
March of 04?
04.
So right after these two loans or right before these two loans?
No, it was before. The assault was after the loans.
Assault was after the loans?
Right.
But up until June of 04, Michaela was with you?
Yes.
Even after the assault?
Yes. Until she found out she couldn't get support. And when she found out she couldn't get support, the judge said, no, he's with her. Within 10 days, she took my daughter, and I haven't had her back since.
When did the court enter an order of support, Mr. Burkhart?
Around September or October, then she was granted support because then she had my daughter.
May I see the order, please? As of April 2005, sir, the court found you in arrears of $2,116.
Right, and that was because I didn't bring proof of financial, because I'm disabled. I only get $1,300 a month. So they gave an as needs, and you're a family court judge. You know what an as needs is, right? When you don't provide financial
Was that
proof.
order ever modified?
We're going back on the 17th of June.
My question is, was the order ever modified?
The original order was.
This order of arrears.
I don't know. All I can tell you is the original order was $61.
The net due, as of this month,
right,
is $3,255.48.
Right. That will be corrected.
I don't know if it's going to be corrected or not. I have no idea if it's going to be corrected, but right now that's what you owe.
Right.
Well, if that's what you owe, sir, why do you think that I would even entertain a case against her for $1,200?
First of all, she lied to you about this being part of child support. How could I loan her something a year and a half ago or a year ago and base it on child support when there was no child support in effect at that time? So that tells you she's lying.
No, just a second.
Yeah.
No, she's not lying, Mr. Burkhart.
Right. Yes, she is.
What? I get the last word.
Okay.
What she said was you were not paying her child support. She didn't say there was a child support order in effect a year and a half ago. She said you were not paying her child support.
But I was giving her money. There's other money that I had given her.
What's the nature of your current disability?
My knee and my back.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a special ed teacher.
You have other children?
I have a 17-year-old.
Does that child receive any disability from your Social Security disability?
They get $75 each.
What amount is the order of support, by the way?
I think it's $289 a month, which on a $1,300 income is not quite feasible.
There is work, sir, that you could do that doesn't involve you moving around.
And what might that be?
Well, let me ask you this question, Mr. Burkhart. How did you come to California?
On a plane.
And you sat for 5 hours?
Well, yeah, I got up, I walked around.
Same way you could sit in your house and do telemarketing.
I probably could.
You can do a lot of things sitting at a desk that don't
Unfortunately,
require...
with the legal matters.
Speaking,
okay,
sir.
Excuse me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Somebody who can sit on a plane for 5.5 hours from New York to California can get a different kind of a job that doesn't require him using his knee.
And later today,
You only called her the B word, that's it? Well, is that a nice name, William?
Nope.
Why did you call her a nasty name?
Because she called me the F word.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Roland Burghart says the mother of his child, Starla Reed, owes for 2 unpaid loans. Starla claims Roland is a deadbeat dad.
How old are you, sir?
53.
53. Well, you have a 5-year-old daughter. You decided to make a child when you should have been having grandchildren. That's something that you do when you
I
have
have a
children to
17-year-old
support.
too.
Listen to me, sir.
All right.
That's something that you have to do. $289 a month support is not a lot of money. It's certainly not half a child's support.
When you're only getting $1,300, that's quite a bit.
That's why you have to get a job,
Unfortunately,
sir.
I'm not allowed to work because of the doctor.
No, you're not allowed to work, sir, because you're getting disability.
Right. Well, until it's done. When the doctor gives me an okay to go back to work, I'll go back to work.
And all I'm saying to you, sir, is that there are things that you can do that don't require you doing anything physical, and that sometimes you have to modify a course in life.
All right.
That's not a joke. I mean, you can either get this federal welfare for disability. There are people who are really legitimately disabled, who can't move, who really can't move. Somebody who can sit on a plane for 5.5 hours from New York to California to try a case can get a different kind of a job that doesn't require him using his knee. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Not just
And
my knee, my back.
$289 is not a lot of money. And if the reason you were watching your daughter for 4 years is because you weren't working, which is what you told me, right?
Yes.
I'm telling you that you should get a job.
Yes, I will.
Get a
as soon as
job.
I'm done.
Good. Good. And, sir, I'm going to dismiss your case without prejudice for the following reason. I am not doing a set-off with the money that you allegedly owe Miss Reed for child support. In the event that your arrears are modified to 0, you have leave to get back on the plane and come back from New York and seek this $1,200. However, if the court sees fit to leave the arrears intact, she doesn't know you a dime. Thank you very much. That's all.
What is that? Excuse me, step out.
Well, the court says he has visitation with my daughter, but she can't spend the night there because his house is unstable for a child to be there.
Eventually, I'm probably going to go to jail because I'm not giving her anything.
They found drug paraphernalia in his house. They found rats in his house.
I have snorted coke for quite a few years. It's good enough for Sigmund Freud.
He is able to get money from the state of New York for his disability, so he's faking that he has one.
You got a mother and father that can't stand each other, and you got a 5-year-old that's in between, and that's the toughest thing that we have to watch out, that we don't hurt Michaela because we don't like each other.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Woodward versus Rubio Robles. Step forward, please.
Tiffany Woodward is suing the parents of her son's friend, Reynaldo Rubio and Julia Robles, for the cost of the boy's glasses. Tiffany claims 11-year-old Ida Rubio smashed them.
Miss Woodworth, this is your son. He's
Yes, sir.
7.
Yes, it is.
And Miss Robles, Mr. Rubio, this is your daughter. She's 11.
Yes.
And according to your complaint, these 2 young children play with each other. And for the 3rd time, this little girl broke your son's eyeglasses.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you want Mr. Rubio and Miss Robles to pay for the glasses this
Yes.
time because you can't get him new glasses. Your insurance doesn't cover the cost. All right. Why don't you stand up there next to your mom and dad? Tell me your name.
Ida.
You want to come up here and talk to me?
Sure.
Good.
Thank you.
Is this young man your friend?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you remember the last time his glasses got broken?
No.
Don't know anything about how his glasses got broken.
The first other 2 times, I didn't know, but this time, I didn't break them.
Well, what happened this time?
We were playing, and
Look at me.
we were playing, and he would call me names, and I would tell him names back. He pushed me, and so I pushed him back. He had hit the brick wall, and his glasses had fell. I think he stepped on them, or the lens popped out by himself, because I didn't step on them.
Okay. You can go back down.
Okay.
Okay, William. Hello.
Hi.
Is Ida your friend?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about how your glasses got broken.
Ida, she pushed me.
Ida pushed you.
Yeah.
Did you
Then,
call? Just a second.
I pushed her back, then she pushed me against the brick wall. Then they fell and then she stomped on them.
Were you calling her any names?
I only called her the B word, that's it.
You only called her the B word, that's it? Well, is that a nice name, William?
Nope.
Why did you call her a nasty name?
Because she called me the F word.
Who called who a name first?
Ida. She called
Ida
me
called-
a name first.
So after Ida called you a name, and then you called her a name, who pushed who first?
Ida, she pushed me first.
And then you pushed her back?
Then she pushed me again. Then they fell off my face and she stomped on them.
You've had a couple of pair of glasses break before, is that right, William?
It's not 3, it's 4. It's 4 times she did it.
How did she do it?
Because the last 3 times she punched me in the face and broke them in half. Then the last time she stomped on them.
But you keep playing with Ida. How come?
I don't know. We just keep on fighting them friends.
First you fight and then you're friends again?
Yeah, every time.
Why don't you go and sit down over there? The first couple of times that William told you that Ida had broken his glasses, did you call her parents?
I live right next door to them. I spoke with them.
Did Mrs. Woodworth speak to you about what happened with Ida?
I don't even recall the first 2 times. I don't remember.
Well, then if she says it happened and you say you don't remember, then it happened.
Well, do you remember?
It never was brought up to my attention about breaking glasses.
What did you tell them?
Well, my husband and I had both asked you if you would speak to Ida, and you guys had spoke to her. You know, my husband and I understand kids will be kids, but after so many times, I can't afford to pay for them, and the insurance won't cover for them anymore.
I got it. Now, Ida, I'm going to see you back here again, right here. Ida, you know what my job is?
Yeah.
What do you think my job is?
Um,
Come on. You're 11 years old. You're a big girl.
yeah, but I don't really.
Well, my job is to make sure that I find out what the truth is. That's my job. And I don't think that you've told me the whole truth, Ida. And I've been a judge a very long time. So when you come to court and Officer Byrd says to you, pick up your hand and you swear to tell the truth, and you say yes, you have to tell the truth. Not stories that you've told your parents, not stories that you told anybody else, but when you're in court, you have to tell the truth. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Now, it's my job to figure out if people tell the truth. And I think he's telling me the truth. I think that you've broken his glasses a couple of times. Is there any reason why you did that? Look at me. Don't look over there. Look at me. Is there any reason why you broke his glasses a couple of times?
Yes, because he gets me mad. He'll call me names and stuff like that.
Well, he can call you names, and do you call him names?
Yes.
Does he break things of yours?
No.
Then why do you break his glasses? Because you get mad?
Well, he'd push me and I'd push him back, but they never broke. Because I never hit him in the face.
Did you ever take off his glasses and break them in two?
No. They could fall and the lens could pop out, or they can accidentally get stepped on if they fall.
They can accidentally get stepped on. They can also get stepped on purpose. You could accidentally step on them, right?
Right.
Go back to your parents. Mrs. Robles, your husband clearly doesn't recall being spoken to by Miss Woodworth about your daughter. You claim not to recall I credit her testimony that she did, in fact, speak to you in the past. And I believe that your daughter broke his glasses and stepped on them just as he said that he did. His testimony was direct and straightforward and honest, that they were calling each other names, they pushed each other. Well, that's possible, and once he gets pushed and she gets pushed, I don't have a problem with that, even though kids aren't supposed to touch each other. But I believe him when he says that once the glasses fell off, she stomped on them because she got mad. She's not telling me the truth. And she didn't tell you the truth if that's what she told you.
So the first 2 times, you believe that she broke them in half?
I believe that she broke his glasses before.
Oh, okay.
And I believe that his mother spoke to you about it before. You may not remember.
I don't recall that.
The glasses are $160?
Yes, they are.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $160. I'd have a discussion with her. She's got to learn about truth-telling. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Is suing 22-year-old Tracy Taylor for breach of contract and damages to a '79 Chevy Malibu. Tracy claims Fernando tried to scam her.
Quiet in the courtroom. All rise. Now, it's case number 109 on the calendar in the matter of Rodriguez versus Taylor. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
Mr. Rodriguez, how do you know Miss Taylor?
She worked at the same office with my wife. She was a co-worker.
Of your wife's?
Yes.
How long had you known her before you sold her a car?
I never knew her. I just got the phone number through my wife. She told my wife she was interested in a car and I was selling one, so I gave her a call.
And what kind of car were you selling?
It's a Malibu Classic 79.
And why were you selling it?
Because I needed the money, because I was unemployed.
And what were you and your wife going to be driving?
Oh, I had another car. I had 2 other cars.
What other kind of cars did you have, Mr. Rodriguez?
I had another 78 Malibu and another 79 Malibu.
You like that car?
Yes, I like Malibu.
And this is what you want. You sold Miss Taylor the car for $2,000.
Yes.
And because you say you felt sorry for her because she was a single mother, you agreed to let her make payments on it. $500 down, and then she gave you another $100. So far, she's paid $600 towards the car.
Yes.
And then, according to you, she let you know she didn't want the car and she wanted her money back. You're suing her for breach of contract.
Yes.
You want her to pay the rest of what she owes on the car. And you're suing her because you say she did damage to the car.
Yes, she did.
Because you repossessed the car.
Yes,
so
I
now
did.
you have the car.
Yes.
And her $600.
No.
Where's her $600?
When she gave them to me, I was unemployed, and I had to pay people back and give my wife money.
Listen to me. I don't mean that... Mr. Rodriguez, I don't mean necessarily that you still have the $600 in your possession. You didn't give it back to her. So you have the car and her $600.
No. She gave me $600 down. Then she said that she didn't want it no more.
So did you give her the $600 back?
No.
You spent it.
I spent some of the money, and I offered her $200. I said, that's all I have now. But I didn't have the car. When she called me, she still had it.
I want to know if you gave her any of her money back that she kept.
No, she wouldn't let me give her
So
anything.
then you have the car.
No, I don't have the car in my possession.
Who has the car?
I have it now because I repossessed it after.
This had to be my 9th case of the day. I don't want you to say anything, Mr. Rodriguez. I just want you to listen to me and believe what I tell you.
Okay.
You currently have her $600 and the car that you sold her.
Okay, I do.
And you're suing her for the rest of the money and because you say she did damage to the car. You got it?
Oh, I got it.
What's the blue book value of this car, Mr. Rodriguez?
I don't know.
Well, let's find out. 1979 Chevy Malibu. Do you think we could get that information,
Sure.
Officer Byrd? Thank you very much.
Can I say something? It all depends on how you fix the car. You can restore any car and make it look good and make it worth money. I had it nice.
Not according to her.
Okay.
Miss Taylor, on what date did you initially see this car?
On March 24th.
And you agreed to pay him $2,000 for the car? And when did you tell him that there were problems with the car?
March 25th, the next day.
What was wrong with it?
The blinkers weren't working, the speedometer, the roof was coming down, and also...
when you say the roof was coming down, what do you mean the roof
it
was
was
coming
tacked up, and I didn't realize it was tacked up.
Was it a convertible?
No.
She's talking about the upholstery.
Yeah, the upholstery was tacked up.
With what?
With thumbtacks.
This is the car that you restored, Mr. Rodriguez? Shh, shh. You tacked up the interior with thumbtacks?
No, look, the car, the interior is all red. You know, it has the okay, what happened was from the windows being open, it was starting to come out. So I did put some red ones in there, some little ones, the round ones. Not the long ones they use in school, in elementary. I mean, that's what she's trying to say. Trying to make it seem like. I had it red ones, you couldn't even see them. And that day when she got it, she's like, what's up with this? And I told her, but just, you know, it's coming down, you can fix it yourself, that's it. She never asked about blinkers, nothing.
Wait, what do you mean she didn't ask about blinkers? When you buy a car, you say your blinkers work? Is that what you're asking?
When I buy a car, I make sure I ask, hey, is there any malfunctions? Make sure the lights work, everything. The radio, whatever I need to know. You know, she didn't ask any questions. She just wanted a car.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Rodriguez?
Right now I'm unemployed, but I'm a machinist.
Take your hands off your hips. How long have you been unemployed?
For a few months.
So who supports you, your wife?
I just do side jobs or whatever I have to
What
do.
does that mean, you do side jobs? You say your wife works. She's a co-worker of hers. So if you don't work, then your wife supports you.
Well, she supports me.
You have children?
Yes, I do.
How many children do you have?
3.
So your wife supports you, she supports your 3 children, and she works full-time. And she takes care of the house.
No, I take care of the house.
I doubt that.
And the kids, everything.
Can I say something?
Sure.
When I got there, I looked at the car. He had taken out the speakers. There's 2 holes in the back of the trunk. And he was inside the trunk trying to hold it up. He said he was going to fix that. And then he said that the gasket on the left side was fixed, but the right side was missing. He said he would fix it.
Miss Taylor, you're not much of a business person. What did Mr. Rodriguez say when you said, I want to return the car after one day?
He said, well, I don't have the money right now. And I was like, oh.
Because he spent it.
Yeah. He said that he owed people or he was going to put it in the bank, but then he told me that day I called him that he put it into his other car.
Into his other car? So, do we have any figure?
Nope.
Doesn't go back that far.
Don't go back that far.
Judge.
You got an 87.
What does the 87 show?
It said $0.
So it says the 87 is worth nothing.
Pretty much. Unless it's in fantastic condition.
Not kept together by thumbtacks.
Pretty much.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're buying a car that's 25 years old, and you're dumb enough to pay $2,000 for it. As far as I'm concerned, you deserve what you get.
And later today,
You should kiss the ground right where you're standing and say, I'm going to be smarter next time. The next time I wait 10 years to have a guy move in with me, I'm going to know him more than 2 weeks. And it's not going to be a recent parolee from state's prison.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Fernando Rodriguez claims Tracy Taylor owes for breach of contract and damages to a '79 Chevy Malibu. Tracy is countersuing for the return of $600.
Miss Taylor, what did he say to you about getting the money back to you?
He said that he's not working right now. He already put the money into his car and give him about a week. If he couldn't come up within a week, he'll borrow it from a relative or family
That's what he
member.
told you. And how much after that did he come and pick up the car?
About 3 weeks later, because the end of that week I called him and he said that he barely got a job, so I'm thinking like at least a week or every 2 weeks he get paid. So I waited 2 more weeks and then he said he lost his job or something.
But he did initially say to you when you called, he said, I don't have the money,
Yeah.
but give me some time and I'll get it to you. And then he took the car back.
I didn't know he took the car back.
How did you find out he took the car back?
Oh, because I got home and then I took a nap and then I went to take my mom to work and I looked and it wasn't there.
Mr. Rodriguez, your lawsuit is for breach of contract. You say that she made a contract with you and she didn't fulfill her obligations under the contract. Your lawsuit against her is dismissed. It's dismissed for the following reason, because I find that you agreed to take the car back and give her back her money. Ordinarily, Miss Taylor, I couldn't help you because you buy a used car as is. If you're buying a car that's 25 years old and you're dumb enough to pay $2,000 for it, as far as I'm concerned, you deserve what you get. However, he's a slick character. He got $600 from you for this car. He should have been walking home, clicking his heels and saying, $600, it's worth less than zero, and I got $600 for it, so he should have been happy. Now he's got you $600 and he's got his car. Put your hand down. Ordinarily, in a court, in all probability, you would get nothing. However, I believe you when you say that Mr. Rodriguez agreed to take the car back when you called him the next day and said, listen, everything is falling apart in this car. I want the $600. I believe you when you say that he told you, I can't give it all back to you because I put some in my car, because that's what an idiot would do, who has 3 children and no job. They would take a piece of $600 and put it in their car and get woofers or tweeters or speakers because he's got nothing else to do with his time but play with his cars. So I believe you when he promised to return your money. And he didn't do that. So his claim is dismissed. You get nothing. Zero. Except you have your car. so you can go find somebody else who might want to buy your car, Mr. Rodriguez, because on her counterclaim, she's getting back her $600.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
Part of that excuse when they step out.
Because of ignorant people and they're laughing, I couldn't even give my proof.
I'm just really happy that, you know, even though I was kind of naive to the whole situation, that it's finally over with and she did believe me.
I offered her $200 a day. She didn't want it. And she told me, no, I want the full.
He didn't offer $200 a day. He offered $200 when the police were there.
The way she is, she likes to work people.
As soon as I got in the car and hit my head and something fell down, I was like, no, it's not for my baby.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McCormick versus Havens. Step forward, please.
Sherry McCormick is suing her ex-boyfriend, 25-year-old Jason Havens, for a series of unpaid loans. Sherry says she moved Jason in only weeks after his release from prison.
Miss McCormick, did you and Mr. Havens ever live together?
Yes, we did.
When?
From about October till March.
October of 2004 until March of 2005?
Yes, ma'am.
Had he been in prison before that?
Yes.
How long were you incarcerated, Mr. Havens?
4 years.
For what?
Burglary and robbery.
Is this the first time you were in jail?
Yes.
How did you meet?
At a bar.
How long had you been out of when you met Miss McCormick?
2 weeks.
Where had you been living?
I was staying with my father at the time being.
Where are you working now, Mr. Havens?
I just do side roof jobs, work under the table, doing roofing, construction.
You're not supposed to say in front of 10 million people, sir, including the IRS, that you're being paid under the table. I'm just suggesting that to you. I didn't ask you that question, whether you were paid under the table, so you don't necessarily be smart. You don't necessarily have to volunteer that information. Do you understand? How much after you met him did he move in with you, Miss McCormick?
It was a few weeks. We had a first date a week later, and then it was a few weeks after that he moved in.
And you live with your daughter?
Yes.
NS. You know what NS means? Not smart.
I know. I know.
Really not smart. Because I assume that since Mr. Havens is so honest with me, he told you that he had been released from prison 2 weeks before? That he had been in prison for burglary and robbery?
Well, that wasn't the story that I heard in the beginning.
He wasn't in prison for working under the table?
No, he wasn't.
Okay, and you don't get 4 years for a first-time offense?
I don't know the court system that well, but...
All right, but you do watch television.
Yes.
That's what educates most people. Didn't educate you enough because you allowed him to move into your house with your daughter. Is this your daughter?
Yes, it is.
Miss McCormick. It's your claim that you made a series of loans to Mr. Havens.
Yes.
During the time that he was living there with you. Mr. Havens says, yes, you did give him money. He was getting back on his feet, and you were more than happy to help him to do that.
That wasn't the case. They were loans.
Let me hear about them, Miss McCormick. I'm going to have to make a judgment about that.
I believe the first one was he came home one night and he had a fat lip. He had been in a gambling game and lost $250. And I had heard some of the voice messages from these people who were after him. And I didn't want to see anything happen to him, so he asked to borrow the money. I, as a matter of fact, had to borrow $100 of it from my grandmother to give him.
When was this?
That was in October, early November.
Keep going.
During the period of time, he would come to me and ask me for $20 here, $10 there, ask me for money to go see his daughter, to do things with his daughter, and at one time he ended up at a party with his cousin with the money that I had loaned him to do something with his daughter.
And when was that?
Probably in November.
November. All righty. So let's see what we got. We've got someone that you met in a bar that moved in with you 2 weeks later, who had been released from prison after serving 4 years. During that same month, he comes home after a gambling debt leaves him bloodied, according to you. You have people calling and leaving voice messages, and those people are saying that they're going to cut him off at the knees unless he gives them this $250, whatever. Yeah. So you borrow money from your grandmother to get him out of that fix. And then you continue to live with him. When you start giving him more money, 20 here, 10 there, and then some money to go and visit his daughter. And you find out that he ended up at a party with a friend and didn't use the money for the visit with his daughter. That's in November. Let's go to the next one.
I had gone to Florida, and he house sat for me. He asked for money while I was in Florida, and I left him money. And while I was in Florida, he ran out of money, so I had called my dad's girlfriend, and she took him over another 20. You know, all this was in promise that when he got his money from his loan from school that he would pay me back.
Is that right?
No, that's not right.
Nah! Don't believe a word of that, Miss McCormick. You've got to start using your brains. How many men have you had living in your house with your daughter in the last 10 years?
Only one.
Only him?
Yes.
You were certainly holding out, and you waited for some, and you got some bargain.
I'm not
you got
saying I
yourself
didn't make a big mistake.
the real pick of the litter. You bought a car from her, is that right?
Yes.
Did you give her any money down?
I gave her an $800 down payment and agreed to pay the rest of the $2,000 monthly.
She took the car back.
Yeah, before the first payment.
Did he give you $800 towards the car?
No, he did not.
How much did he give you?
He didn't give me anything.
She's not going to admit to it. I gave her $800. I gave her 50s and 100s because I got it out of my school loan check. That was the whole point of me getting the loan, was so I could get a car. And she was the perfect opportunity for me to get a car, so I got it from her.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Sure.
He made it a point to have his father mail me a check so he would have a receipt for the first payment. And if he gave me $800 supposedly, I would think he would have wanted a receipt for it also.
That was before I moved out, before she went crazy and tried to go to my friends' houses and try to find me everywhere every night.
Which I did not do.
He doesn't have a counterclaim for this $800. He just says, listen, I bought a car from her, I gave her some cash. She repossessed the car because I didn't finish paying, because I didn't pay for it.
The day
she just didn't
before
want me to
it was
have
even
it
due.
anymore. She
Yeah.
repossessed the car. So he doesn't have a counterclaim. I don't have to even believe that he gave you $800. All I have to believe is, from your perspective, is whether or not you advanced him this money with an expectation of being repaid. I don't believe any sane person who's 43 years old, who has a teenage daughter, who runs a house, first gives him $250, then without getting a penny back, gives him more money a couple of weeks later, and then a couple of months later, without getting any more money back, gives him more money and has a legitimate expectation of being repaid. I don't believe that you had a legitimate expectation of being repaid.
I did,
I
Your
think
Honor.
you made a big mistake, and the big mistake was letting him move in. The big mistake was not the few $100 that you gave him over the course of the months that he was living there. And you should kiss the ground right where you're standing that he left your house, and left your house intact, and left you intact, and left your daughter intact. And say, I'm going to be smarter next time. The next time I wait 10 years to have a guy move in with me, I'm going to know him more than 2 weeks. And it's not going to be a recent parolee from state's prison. Your lawsuit is dismissed. That's all.
All these are excused. You may step out.
To retain an attorney. Barbara says police were investigating Nathan for credit card fraud.
Quiet in the courtroom, please. Now, this is case number 139 on the calendar in the matter of Jack versus Quast. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
This is Jack. This young man is your son.
Yes, he is.
It is your claim that he owes you for some loan that you made him for an attorney when he got himself into some trouble. In addition to that, you had an argument with him several months ago and claimed that he assaulted you, and you wanted him to pay punitively for assaulting you. Your son says that you were the one who actually hit him and that the attorney was your idea, so you pay for it. Is that right?
Yes.
And he has a counterclaim. He says that you disposed of, either sold or got rid of some of his personal property, and in addition, something about a truck that was his that you got rid of. What were you arrested for?
I was actually never arrested. My name got sent into something that happened. No charges have been brought about it.
When was this?
Last.
Your mother would know. When was it?
It was the end of July, beginning of August. The attorney was gotten like second week in August.
Okay. How old are you, by the way?
21.
What kind of work do you do now?
Construction.
How long have you been working?
I've been at my job for over a year and a half now.
Okay. So sometime last year, he got an attorney. For what, Miss Jack?
He was involved in a credit card scam at an appliance store up by our house.
How did you find out about it?
Between him coming home and saying he had to get the stuff out of the house and some of his friends coming to look for him, I got more details about what had happened.
I don't know what you mean. You're saying that he's got to get what stuff out of the house?
Some of the stuff that was stolen or bought with the credit card.
So you had some of this stuff in your house?
He had it in his car, actually, when the car was in my garage.
So he was not questioned, not taken into custody, and never arrested. So tell me about the lawyer. Who called him?
I did, along with Nathan.
Who called him? You only have one person on the phone. Who called him?
I was on the phone.
And where did you get the lawyer from?
A friend of mine from work brought Nathan to her house and talked with Nathan and got the name of the attorney from her boyfriend. So Nathan, in actual, got the attorney's name.
Is that right?
No, she had a long conversation at work with a friend, got the attorney's name, had him, and already called him by the time she got home and talked to me.
Did you ever make an agreement with your mother to pay for the attorney? Look, don't look over there.
No.
Well, you hesitated for a moment, Mr. Quast. So I want you to tell me, what kind of discussion did you have with your mother?
Nothing was brought up about it. I mean, it was basically to find out what was going on with it. She came out and wanted to do it just as a safe regard.
As a what?
As like a safe regard in case something did come of it.
Safe regard? That's not English, sir. How much was the lawyer, Mr. Quast?
I believe $2,500.
And who paid for the lawyer?
She wrote the check out.
Were you there when she wrote out the check?
Yes.
Was it in the lawyer's office?
Yes.
You were working construction at that time.
Yes.
Where were you living?
I was renting the basement from her.
How much were you paying her in rent?
Work around the house.
Don't irritate me. How much were you paying her in rent?
Nothing.
And how much were you earning in construction?
In between $400 to $500 a week.
What were you doing with your money?
Sinking into getting cars running out of the way.
You want to repeat that for me one more time? Sinking into getting my cars running once out of the way? What does that mean? What does that mean? We live in a country where English is the primary language, sir. Try to speak English. Did you graduate from high school?
Nope.
Well, you should have. Go back to school. You're going to be spending a lot of years trying to communicate, Mr. Quast. If you can't make yourself understood, very simple questions. What were you doing with your money?
I was putting my money into vehicles of mine, getting them fixed, to get them out of there, get them sold, get rid of them. I had 2 vehicles not running. I put a couple $1,000s into one of them.
Did you sell it?
Nope.
Why not?
I still couldn't get it running. It ended up being given away.
When you hired this attorney and you wrote out a check for $2,500, where was his money?
He didn't have any money. He was working.
Right.
He was working construction, but it wasn't a consistent 40-hour week. It was here, there, whenever, and depending on weather and whether he got up or not.
You see, Miss Jack, I understand that when you have then a 20-year-old son who's inculpated in a theft ring, and you know that he's involved in this theft ring because you've got the stolen merchandise in your house, I can understand you as a mother saying, listen, I got to get some advice from an attorney for you because, you know, you're an idiot. I raised you, but you're an idiot. That doesn't make it alone, Miss Jack. The fact that he continues not to do the right thing does not create a situation where he has a contract with you to pay you back this money. You're just pouring money into an idiot.
Yeah.
I would have poured money into him if he said he wanted to go back to school to get his GED so that he could speak the language.
The day that we obtained the attorney, I wrote out the check for $2,500. Nate signed all the paperwork at the attorney's office. During the meeting with the attorney, he even discussed it with the attorney that he was paying me back. And the attorney spoke to him about being nice and cutting the grass and doing everything for Mom, doing this and
Good.
borrowing
So he
him
cut
the money.
grass. Did he cut the grass for you?
No.
No, of course not. Doesn't miss a meal, though.
Yeah, no. In conjunction with spending the money on the cars, he was drinking excessively, too.
Miss Jack, you made a...
I know it.
I want you to tell me about the argument that you had, because that's the second part of your lawsuit. You say he assaulted you.
That assault was over the cars that he's talking about that he was working on. There was one vehicle that was in my garage that had been ripped apart and sitting there for 13 months. He had taken the motor apart to replace the timing chain. In the meantime, I'm trying to get my house ready to sell. I had 2 cars donated to the Veterans Association, one of which was his truck. And that's when he ran upstairs, went into the file cabinet, pulled all the titles to the vehicles, and started flipping out on me, because there was no way we were taking his truck. The truck was in my name. I bought it.
Really?
Yes.
So what happened?
Eventually, I had the restraining order filed on him.
Well, you didn't tell me about the assault
Oh, the
yet.
assault happened when I went in the house after the tow truck driver had left. I went to grab the titles out of his hands, and he whipped me across the living room, twisted my arms behind my back, got me head first down into the love seat with his knees in my back.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Your mother has sort of stood by you.
Stood by me to destroy my life.
I'm going to give you some advice. Go back to school. You need it.
And later today,
What were you arrested for, sir?
OWI.
What's an OWI?
Operating while intoxicated.
Operating on whom?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Barbara Jack says her son, Nathan Quast, owes for the cost to retain an attorney and an assault. Nathan is countersuing for the return of personal property and a car.
Okay, go ahead.
Your Honor, I came outside and I said, you want me out of here? I'll leave. Just sign over my cars to me. I'll take them and go. She lunged at me. She hit me multiple times. I had a bite mark in my back that big around. I was down like this. I swung underneath her. She flew across the room. She says that I came at her and everything else. No. I ran to the phone, called the police. Police showed up.
And what happened?
She came up with the story. They said either you both go to jail or nobody goes to jail.
And?
I've been in jail a couple times. I ain't going back.
What were you in jail for, Mr. Quast?
Oh, stupid little stuff.
Like?
Not paying a fine.
What kind of fine, sir?
A ticket. Couple
What else?
tickets.
Ticket, a couple of tickets. What else?
That's
Ever have a DUI?
Yeah, I had one of them.
What?
said, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
How many?
Just one.
All right. Now let me hear a little bit about your counterclaim, sir.
All right, I had one truck, an 89 SM Blazer.
Was it in whose name?
It wasn't her name. At that time, all my vehicles were in her name, which made my insurance cheaper.
How many pieces was the truck in?
Probably at the time she got rid of it, probably 15, 20.
And how long had it been in 15 or 20 pieces?
2-3 months. So over time, all this work has been done to it. I've had receipts, $80, $840 that I've put into this truck. They can't even figure out what was wrong with it. I mean, it ended up almost being a motor. And I actually did go buy a new motor after all this work done to it.
Consider it rent.
Consider it rent?
Consider it rent, sir, and legal fees.
There's never stolen merchandise at my house.
So
it was
your
actually
mother's-
in my
just a second.
buddy's car that showed up.
It was where?
It was in my buddy's car that showed
Your
up at
buddy's
my house.
car. And where was your buddy's car?
He was parked out front when we got the phone call.
And what did the phone call say when you got the phone call?
Police have been called. Everybody's name's been given up.
You better ditch the stuff.
He took off with it.
All right. Now, what else does your mother owe you, aside from the car that was in her name?
All my bedroom furniture.
Your bedroom furniture.
All my bedroom furniture
bought
she
it?
has. Me.
Show me a bill.
I don't have the receipts for that.
When did you buy it?
Oh, 4 or 5 years ago.
When you were 16?
Yeah. I worked at a job since I was 14.
What else?
Actually, I have a home theater system that I bought when I was 15.
Really?
A whole bunch of tools. I mean...
They're gone.
Huh?
They're gone.
They're gone?
She sold them to pay your lawyer.
These are tools I work with. Like, they do my job with.
I suggest you go buy new ones. They're gone.
It's not easy to go buy a $750 air compressor, a $500 staple gun.
And is it just as easy to go and replace that as it to replace $2,500 to pay for a lawyer because your idiot son gets into a scheme where stolen property is in front of your house in a car?
She was told she was getting the money back from the attorney.
You mean the attorney was working for nothing because of your personality, sir?
No, he actually said he's giving the money back as soon as statute of limitations is over.
And when do you think the statute of limitations is going to be over, sir?
It'll probably be over in 5 years.
6. 6?
Letter said
Not
6.
after they see this tape. Miss Jack, he's your kid. You don't want to give him any more money? Don't give him any more money. You had an altercation with him? Did you go to the hospital?
No, I did not.
All right. Your mother has sort of stood by you, is that right?
Stood by me to destroy my life.
Well, she stood by you, sir. She allowed you to live in her home. She allowed you to eat her food. She allowed you to, I'm speaking, she allowed you to keep your car pieces in the garage. She went to a lawyer and shelled out $2,500 in hopes that maybe you wouldn't spend the next 2 or 3 years in prison. That's what I'm talking about, sir. So I'm going to give you some advice. From your mother, you get 0, nothing, nada. From me, you get advice. Go back to school. You need it. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I've had a restraining order filed. He was police escorted out of the home, and he has been out of the house since beginning of March.
My brother's now recently staying with me, and he's got 1 foot out the door.
He's financially, ruined me.
She's taking everything from me.
Hope some mothers are smarter than I am.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Schaefer versus Jack. Step forward.
James Schaefer, a friend of both litigants from the previous case, is suing Barbara Jack for the cost to bail her son out of jail. Barbara says she's not paying.
Who are you?
Me, Jeanette Schaefer.
How are you related to him?
I'm his mother.
I already know who you are. All right. Mr. Schaefer, you are a friend of this gentleman over here.
Yes.
He got himself arrested again.
Yep.
According to your complaint, his mother called and said he totally tapped her out. She had no more money. And according to you, she asked you if you would bail her son out of jail.
That's correct.
You did, and you want her to pay you back.
Yeah.
And Miss Jack says he's a big boy, let him pay his own bail.
That's correct.
I want to stand up over there. I don't want to speak to him yet. Mr. Quast, what were you arrested for, sir, this time?
OWI.
What's an OWI?
Operating while intoxicated.
Operating on whom?
I was driving a motor vehicle.
Did you have a license?
Nope.
So what were you driving a car for?
I was actually up north working.
Well, you couldn't have been working and drinking at the same time.
Everybody that was working, we all went out to the bar after work.
What car were you driving?
97 Luna.
Where'd you get that car from?
I was making payments on it.
This
in my
is
mother's
this is
name.
yet another car.
Yes.
And that car is also in your mother's name?
Yes.
You don't learn.
I did now. Took me a little while.
Okay, so you got pulled over because you were driving without a license in a car that was not yours and you had been drinking. And this wasn't the first time you had been pulled over, so they held you. Is that right?
Yes.
And who was the first person that you called?
My mom.
When was this?
The day after Christmas. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, she called me.
And tell me about the conversation that you had.
Basically, she called me and said, guess what my son got into again? She told me that I'd be paid back as soon as possible. I told him to put it on my credit card, and I never received payment.
Can I see the credit card, please?
I don't have the credit card information, but I do have the bail information.
I'd like to see it. Did you go to where your friend was? This was your friend?
Yeah.
Which is why she called you.
Yeah.
Now, the first person that you called, Mr. Quast, was your mother. Tell me about the conversation you had with your mother.
Called her up. I was still feeling pretty good at that time. Told her that I got pulled over. I'm in jail. Bail me out.
And what'd she say?
I'll see what I can do.
And that was it?
That was it.
And what's the next thing that you remember?
Waking up in a 4x8 cell.
How many children do you have?
2. This is my daughter here.
I'll hear you.
Okay. I was contacted by my cousin that morning who woke me up saying Nate had been trying to get a hold of me. He had spoke to several individuals before he got in touch with me. When he called, he asked me for the money. I told him I didn't have any more. I was tapped out. He said, can you call Grandpa? And I said, Grandpa's not going to do it. And he said, call Jimmy. He'll put it on his credit card. Tell him I'll pay him back as soon as I get paid from the Osceola trip. He was up in Osceola, Wisconsin doing a siding job, and that's what he was going to use to pay Jimmy back.
So he said to you, call Jimmy and he'll put it on his credit card.
Yes. So in turn, I did call Jimmy. Jimmy agreed to do it, and he says, but you got to guarantee me we're going to get the money back. I said, well, he's finishing this job. That's what they were up doing. You know, he says he's going to pay you back. He never paid him.
But his agreement wasn't with him. His agreement was with you.
I was the middleman. Nate is the one that
you
said
guaranteed that he would be paid back.
Well, per Nathan, yeah.
You guaranteed that he was going to be paid back. He's the innocent bystander.
I agree, totally. He's an innocent, but I was not the one that should be responsible to pay him. And I think it's time Nate pay his bills.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you, madam. But this is a court. And in the court, I have this young man standing here, and I have you. And between the two of you, you guaranteed that he would be paid back $780. You guaranteed it.
If Nate would have called me, I would have never bailed him out. But his mom called me, and
it was hard to say no.
Yeah.
Just for my own satisfaction, and I want you to be very honest with me, did you at least sell some of the property that...
The only thing I got out of it is that truck that I donated.
Right.
They gave me a $500 tax write-off.
Oh, just a write-off.
Just a write-off. All the furniture, the Cadillac, all that, I still have all that.
You do?
Yeah.
Everything else, listen to me. Sell it. Don't keep it in storage. You have the Cadillac with all the extras that he put on it?
Yep.
Sell it. All the other things that he abandoned? Sell it. He doesn't deserve it. He's got to grow up. But meanwhile, he's got to stop taking advantage of you, and you have to stop letting him take advantage of you, because you're going to get old very fast, and he's not learning a thing. It's time. Sell his property. Meanwhile, you have to pay him $780, so sell the Cadillac.
Okay.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $780. I hope she listens to me and sells your car.
Party's over.
Lord, Leora LaPearl is suing her former tenant, Laura Morgan, for breaking a lease and damages to her apartment. Laura claims she gave Leora ample notice.
Quiet in the courtroom, all rise. Yes, case number 162 on the calendar in the matter of LaPearl versus Morgan. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, please.
Miss LaPearl, you rented an apartment to Miss Morgan. She was your tenant for a little over a year.
Yes.
According to your complaint, she gave you a 30-day notice. She moved out, and you want her to pay for all of your expenses that you incurred in finding a new tenant, and also damages to the apartment that you claimed that she did before she moved out, and rent. Ms. Morgan says that she gave you 30 days notice, that she left the apartment in fine condition, and she is counterclaiming because she says you filed charges against her for either burglary or trespass, and they were false charges. You never appeared at the hearing when she was forced to appear. I think she had to come back from Europe in order to appear, and she wants you to pay her expenses. Now, when you first rented to her, did you have her sign a lease?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of that lease?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it. What kind of premises is this, Miss LaPearl?
It's a two-family house.
Okay. Who printed up this lease?
This is a pre-made lease.
Well, somebody typed in these things.
I have a secretary that does that for me.
Okay.
And in the back it says...
Just a second. All right. She signed this lease on...
October 1st.
October 1st, 2003, and the lease was for 12 months?
No, the first time it was 10 months. It was from October till the end of July.
Okay,
of
10 months.
2004, yes.
10 months. And then you typed in, or your secretary typed in,
yes,
this lease will automatically renew for an additional 12 months unless you notify each other 30 days. That's illegal. You can't do that. You can't do that. I know you would like to do that, but you can't do that. At the end of the lease, if you don't choose to renew it, the tenant becomes a month-to-month tenant.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand?
Yeah, I
Good.
get what you're saying.
Perfect. Now, when did she move in?
October 1st of 2003.
And she lived there for how long?
She lived there from October 2003 until March of 2005.
Had she paid her rent on time?
Yes, she did.
Had you ever had occasion to try to have her evicted for any reason?
No.
What happened in March of 2005?
I was in Israel visiting my mom, and when on my return, I found out that Miss Morgan entered my house without permission, without anybody being in there, opened the porch door, proceeded to the kitchen to leave a letter in my house, which my daughter found out. This is my daughter.
What did the letter say?
The letter basically said that she's giving me 30 days notice.
Okay. Step up. Your last name is?
LaPearl.
How old are you?
18.
Were you at home when your mother was in Israel?
I was not. I was also away. I was in Mexico.
Who was home?
Well, the thing that happened was that I was supposed to come home the day before, but due to a snowstorm, I couldn't come home. And my dog needed to be feeded. So I called my neighbor and asked her to unlock the house.
Who's the neighbor?
My friend Sarah.
So your friend Sarah was telephoned on what day?
On February 28th.
Well, who was taking care of your dog while you were in Mexico?
My brother, but he had to work that day, and it was an unplanned.
When did you get home?
I arrived home that same day that I'd asked my neighbor to come and feed my dog.
Okay. Now, what did you find, Miss LaPearl, when you came home? Something on the table?
Yes.
What did you find on the table?
I found a letter addressed to my mother.
Everything else was in place?
It seemed that way, Your Honor.
Now, when you found this letter, did you open it?
Yes.
And what did the letter say?
It was a letter from Miss Morgan saying that she had left 30 days' notice and that she had stopped by and left this letter in our home.
It said she stopped by and left the letter in your home? Is that what the letter said? Give me see the letter.
No, that's not what the letter said.
Then I'll see the letter. No, of course it didn't say she stopped by and left the letter in your home. This letter is dated February 28th, 2005, and it says, Sierra, this is to notify you that I will be returning to you the keys of the house at 22 Bright Street, first floor, on the 31st of March. Thank you, Laura Morgan. I am bringing this letter in person to you just to make sure you get it on time on the 28th of February. And it's signed you. Okay. Now, Ms. Morgan, when you got to the house on February 28th, there was no one home?
Your Honor, there was no one home.
Okay, so what did you do?
I didn't leave it on the table. I opened the porch, and there was a dog.
Is it an enclosed porch?
Yes, it is an enclosed porch.
I see.
And there was a dog there. So I very be careful because I didn't want the dog to get into the house. And I just slide my hand, and I put the letter right on the side, on the chair. I didn't put a feet in the house.
I don't care whether you did or whether you didn't.
Oh, I just put
the listen to me. Yes. I don't care whether you did or whether you didn't. So you put the letter inside the house.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
So now you've got your 30 days notice, Miss LaPearl.
Yes.
You're not entitled to any more than that. She's a month-to-month tenant. I don't care what you put in the lease, it's illegal. So what are you suing her for?
First, I was suing her for 1 month rent.
She gave you 30 days notice.
You know, Your Honor, she was the one that said, well, you know, I like this lease because it's automatically renews, and she liked that.
Good. Fine. Well, she gave you 30 days notice. Get over it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're full of baloney. It was vindictive. You were not violated in any way. Put your hand down. Outrageous. You are an outrageous lady.
And later today.
Where is there anything sharp here, sir?
Drop. I was carrying it and she grabbed it from its legs.
I
grabbed
see.
me
She
inside.
was pulling it back.
Oh my God. How ridiculous.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Leora LaPearl claims former tenant Laura Morgan owes for breaking a lease, damaging her apartment, and leaving behind trash. Laura is countersuing for a false police report.
Keep going.
Miss Morgan was smoking in the apartment. The apartment smelled like an ashtray. I have witnesses. My daughter was there to help me clean it. For 1 month, I was trying to get the smell out of the place, and I couldn't. It took us 3 times to shampoo the rugs and clean the walls to get rid of the smell. Beside that, I'm suing for stealing things from the basement. I had whole sets of garden tools. I had dishes in there, trays.
What makes you think that Miss Morgan took those things?
I have little incidents with this woman that make me feel like she's a totally dishonest person, you know.
Oh, stop it.
Okay.
Stop it.
I didn't see
Do you
it.
have any proof that she took anything from your house?
No.
All right.
No, but I have proof to show that she left trash in the basement.
All right, let me see your proof that she left trash in the basement.
When she moved from France, she had boxes and boxes and boxes of things that she brought, and all of it was in the basement. You know, she was doing some kind of artwork. She had some sculptures.
Okay, so you had to either do or get somebody to remove these boxes.
Yes.
All right, so that's what you're talking about, the boxes.
The boxes and the trash. She left their empty bottles, plastic bottles, whatever.
So you had to get somebody,
Yes.
or you did yourself, get the bottles and the boxes out of the basement.
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay,
I
good.
did
And how
get
much
them.
did that cost you?
$300.
Let me see the bill.
It's also for dumping fee.
When did you move out?
I moved out. It was on the 31st of March.
31st of March. This purported bill, which I question,
Yes.
is dated June 7th.
Yes.
You mean you let the stuff stay there until June?
Yes.
I don't believe you, Miss LaPearl. I don't know what you have a bee in your bonnet about. I want to know when you call. She has a counterclaim. And her counterclaim is that you filed these charges against her, which caused her to have, at least for the moment, a criminal record of trespass. I assume that you filed trespass. Do you have a police report that you filed? I'd like to see it.
Yes, I did. I think this is the one. We were to appear in court on the...
I didn't ask you a question yet. When did you file this complaint? When did you return from...
As soon as I found out about it, and I didn't find it right away because...
Just a second.
Okay.
When did you return from Israel?
I think it was March that I returned, the beginning of March.
When did you have a conversation with your mother about this letter?
When she returned from Israel.
Okay, so she returned shortly thereafter from Israel?
Yes.
And tell me about the conversation that you had with your mother when you gave her the letter.
I just told her that when I came home that the letter was inside of the house, and I...
Did you tell her where you found it in the house?
Yes, Your Honor.
Where did you tell her you found it in the house?
I found it on the kitchen table.
Now, who had you spoken to about the letter prior to telling your mother?
Nobody, Your Honor.
You spoke to nobody about the letter. Just listen to me very carefully. You spoke to nobody about the letter prior to telling your mother that you found it on the table. Is that what you're telling me?
I believe so, Your Honor.
That's what you're telling me.
Yes.
Now, after you had this conversation with your daughter,
Yes.
did you discuss the letter with anyone?
Yes, I did.
Who?
Miss Morgan's friend Rosa, the lady that brought her into the house, drove her into the house.
Just a second. Nobody could drive a car into your house.
Into the driveway, obviously.
Did you have a conversation with anyone else?
Not that I remember.
Then you went to the police and filed a criminal complaint.
Yes. A breaking of an entrance. Somebody violating my rights, breaking into my house, yes.
Listen to me very carefully.
Yes.
Maybe it was the neighbor who found the letter and put it on the kitchen table, who was there to feed your dog. Maybe it was your son who found the letter, who was feeding the dog on a regular basis while your daughter was in Mexico, who found the letter on the chair and put it on the kitchen table. You did not speak to either of the two people who had permission and authority to be in your house that day, who could very well have picked up this letter from where she says she left it and put it on the kitchen table. You didn't speak to those people. What you chose to do, despite the fact that you found, Miss LaPearl, nothing untoward in your house, nothing, that your daughter found nothing untoward in your house. The only thing she found was this letter,
Yes.
giving you 30 days notice on February 28th because you were in Israel, your daughter was in Mexico, and she was trying to do the right thing. You went and you had a tenant who lived there for a very long time that you had no trouble with, according to you. You decided to go and file a criminal complaint against her.
I felt totally violated.
Oh,
Somebody
how did you feel
entering my
violated? Did you
house.
feel violated when your daughter said, listen to me, you're full of baloney.
No,
Did
no,
you
no.
feel violated when your daughter told you that she had another stranger come into your house to feed your dog? It's not an answer. I want to tell you something, madam.
Yes.
You're full of baloney. You filed this complaint in the criminal courthouse April 4th. That's the date stamped on the criminal court complaint, which was 1 month later, after you came home. 1 month. And all it says in this criminal complaint was, if I can read it, breaking and entering.
Entering into my house.
I want to tell you something. You're responsible for whatever damages she incurred as a result of your filing this ridiculous complaint. It was vindictive. You were not violated in any way. And it's in all probability somebody who had permission to be in your house picked up the letter and put it on the kitchen table. Huh. Put your hand down. Outrageous. You are an outrageous lady. Judgment for the defendant on the counterclaim in the amount of $1,000. Your claim is dismissed. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Thank you. I'm very thankful to Judge Judy.
I'm happy to get rid of her, so it's fine.
Miss Morgan had actually admitted to actually entering our house.
Her telling me that I broke an entry when I just gave her a month's notice is totally unfair and ridiculous.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Hamouda versus Wilson. Step forward, please.
28-year-old Mohammed Hamouda is suing his former roommate, Susan Wilson, for a security deposit and an assault. Mohammed says Susan scratched his arm with a monkey puppet.
Mr. Hamouda, you rented a room from Miss Wilson and you were a tenant of hers for approximately a year. Is that right?
That's right.
According to your complaint, on the day that you moved out, there was an altercation with Miss Wilson and she caused you to injure yourself with this puppet, I gather. And in addition, she refuses to return your security deposit of $200. So you are suing her for both the injury that you sustained as well as the security deposit. Ms. Wilson says there was never an assault. You were a terrible tenant. You left the place in a mess. And since you left the place in a mess, you're not entitled to your security deposit. Why didn't he get his security deposit back?
He took the blinds off. He threw them away. I took them, put them in the closet, waited for him to move out to show him the blinds were...
Show me pictures of the apartment.
I have a videotape, but he took pictures of the blinds.
I want to see a videotape that you have of the apartment to show me why he shouldn't get his security deposit back.
It's back there.
Let's get it. What word didn't we understand? Are you telling me that the videotape that you have demonstrates the condition of the apartment when you left, that it was a mess?
Yes.
How much did you pay to clean it?
About $90.
Show me the bill.
I don't have a bill.
Who cleaned it?
I did.
Miss Wilson, I don't need the videotape. You're irritating me. He's entitled to get his security deposit back. If you had to pay somebody either to clean a carpet or to clean walls or to repaint or something else, that's a different story. Don't tell me that you paid $90 to have it cleaned up and then I asked who cleaned it up and you told me you did.
Well, the blinds were destroyed.
Show me a bill for the blinds.
I don't have a bill.
Then he gets his deposit back. All right, now, tell me about this assault.
I was trying to move out and I was carrying Mo. And she tried to stop me from getting out. She kept standing in my face saying, give me the key.
Give you the key?
Yeah, for the apartment. But she was kind of a little drunk, so she wasn't.
Look at me, sir. Don't look at your picture. Look at me.
And I was carrying this puppet. On my way out, she stood in my face again. And she said, give me the key. And I said, I already gave you the key. She couldn't believe me, so she grabbed the puppet from its legs, causing me a mark on my arm.
Let me see.
I'd like to see it, too.
Why did you take these pictures? Is it because you anticipated trouble?
No.
So
because she claimed that I left the place as a mess.
He called the police on me because I wasn't going to give him his deposit. So he called the police, and the police said to take pictures, and so that's why I took my video camera out.
I see.
So that was the reason.
And you told him you weren't giving him his deposit back? Why?
Because of the reason of him eating my food, tearing the blinds, you know. It's just a mess.
Byrd, I know that this is... I just have to see on what he scratched himself. I want to see where it's sharp there. Could you bring that up to me, please?
He could have scratched himself cleaning the walls in the bedroom.
Where is there anything sharp here, sir?
The rope. I was carrying it this way. And she grabbed it from its legs.
I see. So
me
she
inside.
was pulling it back. I see. Okay.
I did. Oh, my God. How ridiculous.
I believe you, Mr. Hamouda. I believe you that she caused a scratch on your arm. I believe you that she tried to interfere with your walking out of the apartment, which you shouldn't have done. You are suing her nominally for $300 for that scratch on your arm, and I believe you're entitled to it. And you are also entitled to your security deposit back because she has absolutely no proof that you caused any damage to the apartment. As a matter of fact, the photographs that I've seen show that the apartment was in pretty reasonable condition. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Suing her ex-boyfriend, 23-year-old John Grody, for crashing her VW Jetta. Audrey says John had been drinking and lost his cool.
All rise. That's case number 130 on the calendar in the matter of Smith versus Grody. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Ms. Smith, according to what I've read in your complaint, you and Mr. Grody were dating. You went to a Christmas party with him using your car. He drove home from the Christmas party. There was an accident, and he totaled your car. You were a passenger in the car. You want $5,000 so that you can buy a new car, and Mr. Grody says that it was, in fact, an accident. There was snow and ice on the road, and you should have had better insurance if the car was so valuable. That's your defense, right? Okay. Let's see. This Christmas party was on what date?
December 4th of 2004.
And how far from your home was the Christmas party?
Well, from my home, it was about an hour and a half. From where John lives, it was about 40 minutes.
And I see from your complaint that it was originally your intention to sleep over.
Yes.
And you had hotel reservations.
I do not know if there was hotel reservations. I did call to get a receipt for the hotel reservations. They said that...
You made arrangements to stay over.
I did not. John said that he was going to make all the arrangements.
Okay. And that was because...
It was his Christmas party.
And you were both going to be drinking.
Yes.
So that was a very wise thing, to make arrangements to stay over.
Okay, we didn't make arrangements before we got there. Our whole thing was actually that we were going home that night. When we got there was when everybody said, oh, we're all staying here, so do you want to stay? And originally she said she didn't want to stay.
And what
said
about
we
you?
didn't have the money to stay.
Your Honor.
Just a second, he's talking. Go ahead.
So when we were actually, when we were there, and I said, all right, well then, I wanted to stay there. She said we didn't have the money to stay there, so the plan was to drive home after that.
Who didn't have the money?
Both of us. Either of us.
So you didn't have the money either?
Well, I offered to pay. I mean, I could have had a credit card on me. I could have paid, but then she said she didn't want me to. So the plan was to go home.
Mr. Grody, were you drinking?
Yes, I was.
Was she drinking?
Yeah, she was.
Then you find the money to stay over.
Okay. And,
Good.
All right.
Now, what time did you leave the party?
I had to be around 12:30.
And what time had you arrived at the party?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
I believe it was around 8 o'clock.
What kind of alcohol were you consuming that day, Miss Smith?
I had some wine with dinner, and then in the bar area, I was drinking Captain and Diet Coke.
And what were you drinking, Mr. Grody?
Corbel and Diet Coke.
Corbel and Diet Coke. Is that a mix?
It is for me.
What, really? I mean, do you mix those two together, or you drink the Coke as a chaser?
No, I mix them together.
You mix them together?
Nope, I'm a brandy boy, sorry.
I guess it ain't a mimosa. I guess it's a Melissa.
Melissa. That's cute. It's cute. I wouldn't record it anywhere, but it's cute. How many of these bizarre drinks did you have that evening?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. So you know that you were in no position to be driving home.
Before we left, I did stop drinking a while before we actually did leave.
How old are you, sir?
23.
How many hours into the drive home did you have this accident?
About 40 minutes. We were about a mile away from my house.
Is there a police report?
Yes, I have an
I'd like to
accident
see it. You're driving on a suspended license?
No.
Did you have a license?
Yes, I did.
It says that you were cited for driving too fast for the conditions,
Mm-hmm.
failure to notify police of an accident,
Correct.
and operating after a suspension.
Right. Actually, everything didn't go through. I actually paid the ticket that I had it suspended for before that, but it didn't go through in that township.
What was your license suspended for?
For not paying a ticket or not appearing in court for a speeding ticket.
Did you get a ticket for driving too fast for the conditions?
Yes, I did.
Okay. According to your complaint, Ms. Smith, he was angry that evening when you left.
Yes.
Is that right? Tell me about it.
Well, we were all just, socializing, and I went up to the bar to get a drink. And while I was waiting for my drink, a guy just randomly struck up a conversation with me. We were just chatting while I was waiting, and apparently John here didn't like that, and he came up and he had made a remark to the individual that was talking to me. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I could definitely, he was aggressive in his body language towards this guy. So I really didn't want to, push the issue. I just stayed where I was, thought that he would just, have like 5 minutes of cool down time and I would stay there. But then immediately he came back up to me and he just said, "We're leaving now." And
what time was that?
I really believe it was around 12:15.
Okay, and did you leave?
Yes.
And you let him drive?
Well, physically I let him drive because I knew I could not physically stop him from driving. He had possession of my keys because I allowed him to drive us to the party. And so he was angry. I was very scared. He's much larger than I am.
Shouldn't have gotten into the car.
I understand. I shouldn't have gotten into the car.
The car's just steel, replaceable.
Understandable. I was clearly not thinking about
you'd
the
both
best
been drinking.
thing. Yes, and also, even if it hadn't been drinking, I believe due to the scare factor, I just didn't want him to, of course, damage my property that I worked very hard. And I know that's a very irrational thought. You know, my body is much more precious than a chunk of metal, like you said.
You're right. So what happened on the way home?
He just kept saying that, why were you talking to this guy? This was my party. You're my girlfriend. Being very possessive, being very jealous.
That's some of the booze talking, too.
Possibly, yeah.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I freaked out and I said, John, you need to slow down, it's dark, you know, we're on country roads and you've been drinking, but it was too late. And then the next thing I remember, he was saying, get out of the car now, get out of the car now.
And later today.
Did you believe that the friendship would rekindle into a relationship?
No.
Mr. Marquez, don't insult my intelligence.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Audrey Smith says ex-boyfriend John Grody crashed her VW Jetta while driving drunk. Audrey also says John was irate when he got behind the wheel.
Keep going.
And so he was speeding because he was getting agitated. And I looked at the speedometer, and it was at 80 miles per hour. And I freaked out, and I said, John, you need to slow down, it's dark, you know, we're on country roads, and you've been drinking. But it was too late. Then the next thing I remember was him saying, oh. And then I blacked out momentarily, and then the next thing I remember, he was saying, get out of the car now, get out of the car now. And I was very disoriented, and so he pulled me out through the driver's side door. And
I was going 85 about 10 miles before we actually crashed. I slowed down before we actually went around that curve because I go around that curve every day. I know that it's a bad curve, and there's accidents there all the time.
What kind of car were you driving?
A 99 Volkswagen Jetta.
The car was totaled?
Yes.
Did you tell her that you were going to get her another car?
We had a car at work. I'm auto mechanic.
That's not my question.
Yes, I told her that I was going to buy her the car that we had at work and fix it for her, and it was more than equivalent to what she had. She said she didn't want that car. And after that, I'm not obligated, I did not feel obligated to actually buy her a car. I thought it was just a nice gesture for me to do.
It's not a nice gesture, sir. You caused an accident.
Right.
Your lack of judgment, by virtue of the fact that you had been drinking all night, your lack of judgment and getting behind the wheel and being emotionally agitated with her that evening, which you clearly were. There's no question in my mind that that happened.
Right.
The police indicate that you were driving in excess of the speed limit. Your answer that you provided me says that you had this accident because of the road conditions, because it was icy, going in excess of the speed limits, which the police document.
It says too fast for conditions now.
That's absolutely right. Too fast for the conditions. Too fast for the conditions. Too fast for the hour of the evening. It was dark. Too fast for the fact that you had been drinking champagne and Coke a whole night. All of those things put together suggest to me that this was not an accident brought about by virtue of the fact that accidents sometimes happen. You were doing the wrong thing. And because you were doing the wrong thing, she doesn't have a car anymore.
Right.
So take care of that. You have the blue book value on your car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
I did give her my car, by the way.
She shouldn't have it anymore, does she?
Yeah.
Yes, I do have, it was signed over to me, but I also have the NADA value of that.
Just a second. Hold it, my dear. You accepted the car from him and you registered it?
Not at first. At first, he gave it to me. He said, you can borrow this car until I buy you the replacement for your totaled vehicle.
Okay.
I said, thank you. I told him, like, well, you know what? I'm going to take the car for now, and then I'm going to sue you for the rest.
Is that what she said to you?
Yep.
What kind of car did you give her?
95 Corsica Chevy.
Are you telling me that you signed the title over to her?
Correct.
And she said to you, I'm going to take this car, but I'm going to sue you for the rest of the money that I think you owe me, and you said, okay, I'm going to sign over the car anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world would you do that?
Because otherwise, if I took the car back from her, how would she get anywhere?
What do you care?
I don't want to be a jerk. I understand that she didn't have a car because of me, and I didn't want to be a jerk. I wanted her to be able to get around.
You've been driving this car since April?
I've actually been driving it since the accident happened. And the reason why I needed it transferred over into my name is because I found out that he did not carry insurance on it. And I was driving the car and I need insurance, and in order to carry insurance, it has to be registered in my name. So that's why I had to do that. Otherwise, again, I would be left with no car.
Okay, why don't you have her do this? Why don't you have her sign this title back over to him?
Signature to the seller, I guess.
Okay, can I borrow your pen? Thank you.
Good. Now he's got his car back. Go pick it up.
Okay.
It's yours. And now you'll pay her $5,000 so she can go out and buy a car. Just for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000.
Thank you, Judge.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I thought it was, I guess, fair.
Of course I'm happy. I won. You know, yay.
I was just upset that she wasn't with the party.
He just kept saying, you know, this is my party, you're my guest, and you should be by my side the entire night.
That's pretty much all it was about.
Really have no, beef with him other than this.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Marquez versus Welfare, step forward, please.
23-year-old Joe Marquez is suing his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old student Jamie Welfare, for selling his washer and dryer. Jamie claims the appliances were a Mother's Day gift from Joe.
How old are you, Mr. Marquez?
I'm 23. I'll be 24 in a couple days.
Before you moved in with Miss Welfare and her two children, where were you living?
I was living with my parents.
And when did you move in with Miss Welfare?
I moved in with her in mid-October of 2003.
And how long did you live there?
I lived there until the beginning of April.
And where were you working during that time?
The whole time I was working at Denny's restaurant.
Part-time?
Part-time, yes. I also coached football at the local elementary school.
What was your financial arrangement when you were living with Miss Welfare?
We paid half. I paid $300, she paid $300.
For rent?
For rent, correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
What about the rest of the expenses?
We usually split those down the middle as well.
And what were you doing, Miss Welfare?
I also had two jobs. I was working at two separate restaurants.
Okay. This is what the complaint is about. The complaint says that while you were living there, you purchased a washer and dryer. When you moved out in April of 2004, you told Miss Welfare that she could keep them for a while because you had no place to take them because you were moving back with your parents. A year later, you finally get your own place. You let her know you want your washer and dryer back, and she says, forget it.
Actually, I did have a place to put them. I have a receipt for my storage space, which I purchased in April 17th of 2004 as well, which was actually 5 days after I moved everything out of the apartment.
All right, so you didn't want to put it in your storage space because...
Well, she has two children, and we've been to the laundromat together, and it takes quite a long time to do laundry. And since my parents already had a washer and dryer, I had no need for them at that time. And I had just purchased them in March of that year, which had only been about a month. So I figured I might as well get some use out of them by leaving them at her apartment.
That's somewhat correct, but not completely correct.
23-year-old Joe Marquez is suing his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old student Jamie Welfare, for selling his washer and dryer. Jamie claims the appliances were a Mother's Day gift from Joe.
Well, let me hear what your version of the events were.
When he bought those for me, it was an early Mother's Day gift. I was the one doing all the laundry. He never even did his own laundry. I was doing my laundry, his laundry, and both of my children's laundry. And between the two jobs and being at the laundromat all the time, it was a lot of time away. And so we had been discussing, him buying a washer and dryer for me, and he was looking online and said, hey, come and pick the one you want. And so I picked the one I want. He gave them to me. When he moved out, I was sleeping when he moved out. Our relationship had gotten kind of rocky. There was never any discussion about me giving them back, ever.
When, for the first time, did you contact her with regard to retrieving these two items?
Your Honor, as she said, I moved out at the very beginning of April of 2004. We didn't talk for 2 weeks afterwards. After that, we, began phone conversations, and actually on May 5th of 2004, she came over to my house, my parents' house, for a little Cinco de Mayo get-together. In May of 2004, I gave Miss Welfare $100 because she was having a rough time making it on her own in the apartment, and I have here a check for utilities / other stuff I gave to Miss Welfare for $100 to help her out.
Can you answer my question?
Sure.
You remember what my question was?
Yes, I do. Have we ever talked about the washer and dryer?
When for the first time did you ask for it back?
I first asked for it back when I found out I was moving out with my current girlfriend, which was in March of 2005.
So between April of 2004 and March 2005, you had absolutely no discussion with her about this washer and dryer.
That isn't correct. When I gave her that check, which was dated May 20th of 2004, we had discussed it. She actually wanted to purchase the washer and dryer fully. She wanted to give me payments per month. And I told her that since we were becoming good friends, I did not want the only conversation to be between us about the washer and dryer.
At that time, Mr. Marquez, did you believe that the friendship would rekindle into a relationship?
No. Actually, when we first broke up,
Mr. Marquez, don't insult my intelligence.
Sorry, Your Honor.
You don't go from being lovers to friends without somebody hoping for a little bit more.
That is correct. Yes.
So during that time, and during the time, according to you, she said, why don't you let me make payments on it? You said, no.
Correct.
And now you have a new girlfriend.
Yes, I do.
You moving into an apartment together?
We have currently moved into an apartment as of the 9th of April.
And I assume it doesn't have a washer and dryer.
Actually, it does. After this little skirmish between me and my ex-girlfriend, my current girlfriend went out and purchased one, hoping it would make me feel a little bit better.
Did it?
I was very, very pleased that she would show that much friendship towards me. But I wasn't very angry about the washer and dryer. I was angry at the fact that she took me for granted that I was being nice and letting her borrow the washer and dryer when I could have just put them in my storage.
Get over it. There is something that doesn't ring true, sir, about your story that you told her more than a year ago, that I'm letting you use this piece of equipment that breaks down, that once it's used, it becomes less functional. I'm going to let you use that for as long as it takes. And it just so happens that the time that you want it back is when you're moving in with a new girlfriend. By the way, whose washer and dryer is the new one that was purchased?
It is hers.
I just want her to hear that.
Yes, I've told her that many times.
Very good. And you know whose this is?
Yes.
Hers. Thank you. That's all. Have a happy life.
Is suing her ex-fiancé, Clifton Campbell, for vandalizing her car by kicking it. Clifton denies the charge.
Yeah, this is case number 127 on the calendar in the matter of Fennell versus Campbell.
Thank you, Byrd.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
All right, Miss Fennell, this is your old boyfriend.
Correct.
This is, according to your complaint, probably Carlos.
That's Carlos, correct.
New boyfriend.
Old boyfriend also.
Old boyfriend.
Correct.
You don't stand still too long. Who is this?
This is my fiance, Tiffany.
She's just here for moral support?
Mm-hmm.
Because she brought the old boyfriend, you brought the Tiffany.
Right.
Okay. Miss Fennell, according to your complaint, this gentleman, with whom you had a relationship for a while, became annoyed when he found out that you were with Carlos, and he vandalized your car. Mr. Campbell says he was in fact annoyed, but he didn't do any damage to your car. When were you and Mr. Campbell involved in a relationship?
We started, actually I met him June of 2003.
When did you and Mr. Campbell terminate your relationship?
November of 2003.
And when did this incident happen with your car?
In March of 2004.
Well, tell me what happened in March of 2004.
Carlos had come to visit me at Ohio University.
Carlos?
Carlos had come to visit
How long had you been dating Carlos?
I started dating him in December of 2003, very soon after ending the relationship with Clifton. So he had come to visit me at the university, and we just come in from a movie. It may have been about 1:30 in the morning. This is March 13th. I hear this banging on my door. And so, you know, it was kind of unusual.
Were you in a dorm room?
Yes, I am in a dorm room, or I was then. And so it's 2 o'clock in the morning, so, you know, I'm not expecting anybody. So I go to the peephole and I see that it's him. Like, we've had history in our relationships of just different violence and him threatening me and stuff like that. And so prior to him coming, he had been trying to call me, and I wasn't answering the phone. So he had been leaving messages on my voicemail, just threatening.
I mean, he just decided to come out of the blue? He hadn't been in touch with him, really? Since November of 2003, all of a sudden in March of 2004, he shows up?
We've been in contact sporadically, not very much. He was just calling. We kept in contact via email.
But you hadn't been dating?
We hadn't been dating.
Anyway, he comes, it's 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, bangs at the door, you don't answer the door, what happens next?
Carlos is there. Carlos wants to answer the door, and he and Cliff had just a few words. It wasn't a big episode like I thought it would be. And afterwards, he walked.
Did you say anything to Mr. Campbell?
No, I didn't.
Okay. What happened next?
Once he left the dorm room, I went to my dorm window because I know what he's capable of. And so when I looked out the window, I saw him kicking my car and walking away.
Did you call the police?
I did.
That same day?
That same evening.
Do you have a police report?
I do.
I see it, please.
There's some pictures.
What kind of sneakers are you wearing?
Lugs.
Lugs?
Yes.
Is that who makes them, lugs?
Yes.
Is that what you usually wear?
Yes.
Huh. All right, Mr. Campbell, let me hear what you have to say, sir.
For one, we were not just boyfriend, girlfriend. That was my fiance. We had got engaged on March 9th.
Tell me about that, Mr. Campbell.
Well, basically, I had came to Ohio University on March 9th, I remember, because that's my little brother's birthday. I had proposed to Tamar. She had said yes.
Did you give her a ring?
Yes.
Does she still have the ring, or did you take it back?
No, I didn't take it back. I'm not sure if she still has it or not.
What kind of ring did you buy her?
Gold ring with like, I don't know how many carats, the diamonds in it.
How much did you pay for it?
It was like $1,700.
And you didn't ask for it back?
No.
Did he give you a ring?
He gave me a ring, but...
When?
I don't believe it was March 9th. I think it was the week before then, the last week in February. He did give me a ring.
So that you were still not only communicating with Mr. Campbell on the internet by email, but just a few weeks before, you had actually seen him.
We weren't seeing each other.
You had actually seen him, I said.
I had seen him, yes.
How long did you stay when you came to visit her, Mr. Campbell?
I had spent the night with her March 9th, and I left on March 10th.
So when you came back on March 13th, because she wasn't answering her phone, and
Well, she did answer the phone.
Oh, she did?
One time.
And what did she say?
I heard a guy in the back, which I presume was probably whatever his name is.
Carlos.
Carlos. She just wasn't acting herself. Normally, she's real uppity and giddy when we're talking on the phone. And it sounded like she was trying to hide something and was rushing me off the phone.
So you became
Suspicious.
And you got in the car, and how long a drive is it to the school?
It's about 3.5 to 4 hours.
And while you were driving, did you try to call her again?
Yes.
How many times?
Probably 4 or 5.
So by the time you got there, you were really pretty annoyed.
I was...
Just so far you've been honest with me. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand.
So far you've been together,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been honest.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That doesn't mean you're going to get away with denting her car. I want you to trust me on this, Mr. Campbell. But I like the fact that you've been honest. So
Right.
I'm not going to stomp on your head. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Very good. Now, second ex-boyfriend answers the door, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
What do you do?
First, I'm just dumbfounded. It's like, this is my fiance, and this dude is answering the door trying to look like he was all tough or something.
So what do you think was going on there? You think he was delivering a vacuum cleaner?
Not at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I know you're a telemarketer, but only I get the last word. You know the people that say, goodbye, don't call me again? That's me.
And later today,
Listen to me. You cannot unilaterally modify a contract. You know what that means? No.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tamara Fennell claims ex-fiancé Clifton Campbell kicked her car after discovering she had a new boyfriend. Clifton is denying the charge.
So what did you do?
Well, basically, me and him had a few words, and then I was just like, F it, y'all can have each other, and I left.
But when you left, you kicked her car.
No, I didn't.
Well, maybe you were just so angry you don't remember, Mr.
No,
Campbell.
maybe he was also angry.
He was.
That was her
No.
boyfriend?
No. You know why, sir? Because the two of them called the police together immediately after you left. And the police went downstairs and looked at her car, which was very dirty. But the one thing that they did find were fresh sneaker prints on the car. Reeboks and dents where the footprint went into the door. Now, quite frankly, I can understand you being really annoyed. She clearly doesn't make up her mind well, but she's entitled to do that. She's entitled to play the field if she wants to. Not entitled to going around breaking people's hearts. That's really unkind.
I would like to explain if I can.
Go ahead.
Okay. One thing that he did say was that was my boyfriend, and Cliff was aware that Carlos and I were dating.
She told me it was some dumb dude she get money from. That's all she told me about him.
Oh, no, I never
Just a
said
second. Okay. So?
When we broke up, it was on these crazy terms. I had been through just a lot of things with him, as far as him threatening my life, different situations where he held me at knife point, just a lot of violent situations where I felt like if I was going to ever have a situation that was going to be calm with Cliff, I pretty much had to tell him what he wanted to hear.
She's lying.
She's lying, Mr. Campbell. She's lying because she didn't tell me all of this stuff when it was her turn. And she says a lot of things in here, that she witnessed you stab somebody during spring break. She witnessed you burn down somebody's home, which is why she knew that you were violent and she wasn't going to subject herself to that. She didn't play it nicely.
I don't think I'll be out right now if I stab somebody and burn down their home.
Listen to me. Mr. Campbell, I think that you were pretty fortunate that you have a new fiancé. You get along pretty well together?
Get along great.
What do you do for a living, sir?
Right now, telemarketing.
Do you work?
Yes, ma'am.
You planning on getting married?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, very good. Miss Fennell, what year car do you have?
A 94.
1994 what?
Honda Accord EX.
And did you get an estimate on taking out the dents?
I did.
Let me take a look at the picture. I see a dent near a door. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can pull out the dents in that car. The paint isn't off.
The paint's off.
Car's 10 years old. Is it just off in that spot?
Excuse me, Judge.
It's only in that spot.
She told me one night around Christmas that she had got drunk and got in a wreck and dented her car up.
Listen to me. The police noted the damage on March 13th, sir. I'm not believing her. I'm saying the police noted the damage.
I understand that.
Oh,
but if she
good.
was messing with two different guys at the time, how do I know it was in the third or fourth that got off and did that
Just
to
a
her
second.
car?
You don't have to. Only I have to know, Mr. Campbell. And there may have been somebody else that gave her car a good clop. But so did you, on your way out.
No, I didn't.
Well, I'm telling you that I believe that you did. You had the opportunity, you had the inclination, and you certainly, Mr. Campbell, had the motive.
But I didn't.
Don't say it again. There's only one person who gets the last word, and that's me. Do you understand? Only me. I know you're a telemarketer, but only I get the last word. You know the people that say, goodbye, don't call me again? That's me.
Tamara Fennell claims ex-fiancé Clifton Campbell kicked her car after discovering she had a new boyfriend. Clifton is denying the charge.
You get a ding doctor to pull out the dings that he did on your now almost 12-year-old car. Not for $1,700, which is more than the car is worth, but for $500. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all. Don't play with people's hearts, Miss Fennell. Sometimes you're going to get burned. This time it was just your car. Next time it may be another part of you. That's
Parties
all.
are excused. You may step out.
I believe it was when she heard that I was engaged to a new female. She just went on ahead and decided to try her best to do something to get back at me.
Oh, no. He wasn't even with anybody else at that time. Like he said, he had just proposed to me. So, no, I wasn't upset at all.
I wouldn't mind getting the ring back. That's a lot of money.
He told me to pawn it. It definitely wasn't a $1,700 ring. I think it was something that he might have stole from his grandmother's jewelry box.
I believe she played games to the fullest.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lampa versus Fout. Step forward.
23-year-old Mindy Lampa is suing her former friend, 23-year-old Gary Fout, for an unpaid loan. Mindy claims Gary promised to repay the loan with his tax refund, but never did.
Miss Lampa, Mr. Fout was a friend of yours, and according to what I've read, you've known him for about 4 years.
Correct.
Are you an accountant by trade?
No.
But you do your own income tax and you do income tax for other people?
Correct.
This past year, Mr. Fout asked you to do his taxes, according to your complaint.
Correct.
And you agreed for a small fee.
Right.
So far, are we correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were entitled to a refund.
Yes, ma'am.
Of how much, sir?
$28.60 or something like that.
Is that right?
$28.81.
And you wanted that refund right away.
Yeah.
And what did you tell him, Miss Lampa?
I told him that if he agreed to give me the refund, give me the money back once the refund was posted, that I would give him the loan as long as he agreed to it. He said he would, so I wrote him the check.
So far, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you do his taxes?
February 13th, the week of the February 13th.
And when did you give him the check?
I wrote him the check on February 16th.
And when did you cash the check, Mr. Fout?
It was deposited maybe this next day.
Yeah. You did get the refund back.
Yes, ma'am.
And you didn't give her the money.
No.
And the reason that you didn't give her the money is because, A, you say that she told your mother, and she shouldn't have done that.
Correct.
And B, she doesn't need the money anyway. Shh. Please.
That wasn't the case, no.
Well, that's what you say in your answer.
Well, the reason was she had started calling me about a week.
Just a second. I just want to make sure I had both of your reasons, both of your defenses. Okay. One, you say that the plaintiff told your mother.
Correct.
And the second thing was, I don't know why she is so hard up for this money. She lives expense-free with my father-in-law.
Correct.
So my first question is, how do you know this idiot?
He used to be a co-worker with me.
Okay. You got 10 seconds to explain to me why she isn't entitled to this judgment.
She called me about a week after she gave me the check, saying, I want the money, I want the money. I hadn't had the refund yet.
When did you get the refund?
It was about...
That's very easy to figure out, sir.
It was 7 or 8 weeks afterwards, I believe.
I do have a copy of the
I'd like to see it.
It was posted about 6 weeks after.
March 11th. So it's February 17th. So it was less than a month later that you got the check. I'm speaking.
Sorry.
It was less than a month later.
Okay.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, when you got the check, March 11th, why didn't you give her the money?
She had called me about a week after she gave me the check, her check, saying, I need it. Told her it hadn't deposited yet. She said she was going to call my mother and tell her to give it to her, and then I would pay her back. I told her, I said, if you call my mother, I'm not paying you, period. I don't want my mother involved. This is between me and you. End of story. If you call her, I'm not paying.
You can't make, listen to me. You cannot unilaterally modify a contract. You know what that means? No. Didn't think you did. You can't say to her, if you do thus and such, I'm not going to pay you back unless she agrees to it.
She did agree.
She agreed.
Yes,
Just
she
a
did.
second. Are you telling me, Mr. Fout, that when you said to her, if you call my mother, I'm not going to pay you back, she said to you, fine. If I call your mother, you won't have to pay me back? Is that what you're telling me?
Not in that many words. What she said was, that's fine, then I will not call her.
I never said
Which
that.
She did, created problems with me and my mother.
That's too bad.
Well, the problem was,
Your Honor, I waited a week.
you know, she, in her world, her adopted father is her everything, and he jumps when she tells her to. My mother and me don't do that, and I did not want her to cause problems between me and my mother, which she did, when I only see my mother maybe every 2 weeks. Cause problems because she had to run like a child and tell her.
Mr. Fout, there's only one child in this room. Unfortunately, I have a sense that this young lady, who's your girlfriend, right? Wife.
After 6 months of dating.
Relax.
Excuse you.
You've been with how many people in my life?
Don't speak to her. You want to speak to her? You speak to her outside when you're handing her your
Yeah.
check. But in here, you only talk to me.
Yes, ma'am.
One child in here, and that's a child that doesn't pay their debts. Somebody who is a friend of yours. A friend of yours.
We weren't friends at the time.
Listen to me, Mr. Fout.
Yes, ma'am.
If you weren't friendly with her at the time, why do you think a stranger would say to you, you want your money now so that you can have instant gratification? I'll give you the money, interest-free, because I have so much money, it's not going to make any difference to me. Do you know anybody like that?
No.
No, of course not. I mean, did you actually think you were going to come here today and walk away unscathed?
Well,
You acted like a child.
No, the problem
She chose to marry a child. That's her problem.
No.
When you owe somebody money, when you make a contract, you pay your bills, Mr. Fout.
And then we
Judgment
made-
for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,881.
Thank
That's
you, Your
all.
Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
For assaulting her during a night of heavy drinking, Demetra says Emily punched him first.
All rise. Yeah, this is case number 5 on the calendar in the matter of Collins versus Daniel. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Ms. Collins, you and Mr. Daniel were boyfriend and girlfriend. It is your claim that after a night of both of you drinking, Mr. Daniel assaulted you, caused you severe injuries. You were treated in a hospital. You want him to pay your medical bills,
Yes,
and then
Your
some. Mr. Daniel said that you were both pretty drunk, that you were as aggressive as he was. He has no recollection of assaulting you to the extent that you claim that you were assaulted, and that you even saw each other subsequently. Is that
Yes,
right,
Your
sir?
Honor.
How long were the two of you dating?
We've been dating probably for about a month at the time when the incident happened.
You have a drinking problem?
No, ma'am.
You have a drinking problem?
No, ma'am.
Well, it seemed to me that if two people get loaded to the extent that they can't remember what's happening, they have a problem.
I remember everything that happened, Your Honor.
I remember everything that happened, Your Honor.
Do you?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Daniel?
Mechanic.
And you?
I'm a nurse.
Okay, Ms. Collins, let's hear about the assault. It happened in February of
Yes, ma'am,
2005?
February 12th.
Go ahead, let me hear.
We had been going out for about a month, and we went out with some of my friends out to a couple of clubs. We both had been drinking, and then we closed the clubs and went back to his house. My intentions were just to go there and go to sleep because him and I had been arguing and been having some problems. I found out that he was married. He told me he had been married and then came out slowly telling me he's still married in the process of getting a divorce. then found out that they weren't in the process of getting any kind of divorce. So when we went back to his house, he was making advances towards me, to do something sexual, and that's not what I wanted.
Yeah,
so
she's lying.
Shh. You're going to have a chance later.
So
I don't want you to look down. I want you to look at me. I want to look at your eyes, Miss Collins. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Everything at this point was fine up until when he started doing that.
Well, what did you go back to his house for if you were drinking and he was drinking?
Because up until this point, there hadn't been any problems.
Well, you closed the clubs. It must have been very late.
Yeah, him and I had
Don't
been...
look down. You look at me.
Him and I had been hanging out.
Listen to me.
And
you just told me you closed the clubs, which means it was very late.
Yes, ma'am.
And the two of you had been drinking. You went to more than one club.
Right.
So then why, if you didn't want to engage in any sort of intimate relationship, would you go back to his house rather than go back to your house?
Because there was no way for me to get back to my house because both of us had been drinking.
Well, how did you get to his house?
He drove. He drove. I mean, my friend's house was only a block away from his house, so, I mean, he drove.
Well, when you say you closed the clubs,
yes.
You closed the clubs and went to your friend's house?
Yes, who lives not too far
just a
from the
second.
club.
Well, you didn't tell me that. You said you closed the clubs and went to his house. So you closed the clubs and went to your friend's house, who lives a block away from him.
Right.
Why didn't you stay at your friend's house? Is not an answer.
Because we were going to spend the night together. I mean,
Who was going to spend the night together?
Him and I were going to spend the night at his
Well, what
house.
were you going to do? Play canasta?
Just go to sleep. We were just going to go to sleep, Your Honor.
Why couldn't you go to sleep at your friend's house?
It's a party house. There was too many people there. I don't crash at party houses. I wanted to stay with who I consider my boyfriend.
Okay, I'm just getting there. All right, so now you drive to his house.
Yes.
Keep going.
Okay, so then he started coming on to me. I just wanted to go to sleep. I just wanted to go to sleep, Your Honor. And when I tried to leave, he blocked the door.
Where were you going?
I was going to call someone to come pick me up. I just wanted to leave the house and go out front, use my cell phone, call somebody to come pick me up. And he would not let me leave. He blocked the door. He pushed me down. I got up. He pushed me back down. And then he pushed me over towards the bed. Every single time when I got up, he kept pushing me down. And then that progressed. He hit me. He smacked me first. And then he hit me in the side of my head. And I tried to fight back. And then he just ended up choking me, telling me to go to sleep. And that I wasn't going anywhere and cursing at me and stuff like that. And that was the last thing I remember, him telling me to go to sleep and that I wasn't going anywhere and that this is what it felt like to be strangled.
What do you mean? It was the last thing you remember. What is that? I don't understand. It's the last thing you remember.
Well, he was choking me, and then when I woke up, it was about 7 o'clock in the morning.
So he choked you, you passed out, and then you woke up how many hours later?
It was probably about 4.5 hours later.
Okay, when you woke up, what did you do?
I woke him up and told him to take me to my car and that I was thinking about pressing charges against him. And he told me that it was my fault, and I didn't say anything else to him.
So where did you go?
He dropped me off at my friend's house. And
a block away?
Yes.
Couldn't you walk there?
It's probably a little bit further than a block. It's in the same neighborhood.
Took you to your friend's house, and what happened next?
I went inside. I didn't say anything to my friends because I know if I would have told them, they probably would have.
Don't speculate what they would have done. Keep going.
Well, I didn't say anything, and I left.
Where did you go?
I went home and spoke to a couple family members of mine. And I explained to them what happened, and they said that I should go to the hospital. I didn't want to go to the hospital because I didn't have insurance.
What were you going to the hospital for?
Because the side of my head was severely swollen, and I had blood coming out of the side of my ear, and my jaw wasn't meeting.
You mean your friends didn't say anything to you when you went into the house?
I kind of hid my face a little bit.
Okay. You have photographs?
I don't have any pictures because at the time...
the answer is you don't have any photographs.
No, ma'am.
Do you have a hospital report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it. Okay. Now, after this incident happened, you went out with him again.
Yes. He called me. He seemed very genuinely sorry. He was concerned with what condition I was in when I went to the hospital and everything, and I told him I ended up having to going. I was seriously hurt.
Well, they found that you had a facial bruise. They did a CAT scan. They found nothing.
Yes, ma'am.
But the main thrust of this bill is the $2,500 CAT scan. That's what bloated it to $3,600.
Yes.
Okay. So you told him that you had this bruise, and he said?
He said that he would pay for all of it. I told him that I would feel better about him sitting in jail, and he said that I would be doing the right thing if that was the route that I took, and that he would do anything he could to make it up to me after he got out.
Fine. So when did you go out with him again?
A month later.
Why?
Because the guy that I knew was very sweet, and he treated me really good, and I just thought that he had an alcohol problem that changed him into somebody else.
Well, you told me about 5 minutes ago that you had been arguing with him a lot because you found that he lied to you, that he was married, that he wasn't in the process of getting a divorce, and he's a drunk, and he has blackouts, or he doesn't know what he's doing, and he gets violent. All this doesn't sound to me like worthy of a second date.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I always love it when they bury themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Shooting fish in a barrel.
Shooting fish in a barrel. All you got to do is let him talk.
And later today,
What do you have that suggests that he took your car?
I specifically remember him wearing a hat, and I found this hat in the car, which is the hat that he was wearing that night.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Emily Collins says ex-boyfriend Demetris Daniel beat her up during a night of heavy drinking.
My question to you is, you just said to me that the person that you knew, even though he lied to you about being married, he lied to you about getting a divorce, he assaulted you to the extent you had to go to the emergency room. He was a sweet guy, and you felt that it was only because of the alcohol that changed his personality. That's pretty much what you just testified to.
Mm-hmm.
Then why in the world would a relatively intelligent woman go out with him drinking again?
We went out to dinner, and he had only had like 1 or 2 drinks while we were sitting there having dinner.
And what about you?
Same.
You drank together.
We had
All
wine
right.
with dinner.
How about a Diet Coke? What?
Yeah, that probably would have been the right
Give me
thing
a
to do.
break.
You're right. You're
I
right.
know. They keep me in business, so I shouldn't complain. Now I'm up to you.
The truth of the matter.
You know me. I love the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you don't tell me the truth, you're going to be eating your shoes.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Okay, the whole night started. We was at Mojo's. This was the club we closed. When we got in the car driving back to her friend's house, we were supposed to get in her car, but we couldn't find her keys from the incident that happened at the club with her throwing my leather coat on the floor twice to lose her keys.
Get to your house.
Okay. We get to my house. Okay. She's passed out in the car. That's why she doesn't remember how we got to my house. The point is, I took her.
Up. Go ahead.
She's passed out in the back seat. All right. Reason we didn't take her car, couldn't find her keys. I pick her up. I told her inside the house. I put her in the bed. I take her shoes off. I go to cut the light off. She's up and angry, yelling, screaming, pushing me. And I'm just looking at her like, where's this coming from? I wasn't to the fact that I was drunk enough not to drive. I wasn't drunk enough not to handle the situation. The fact of the matter was, she was the aggressor. She started the whole aggression. She started the whole violence of slapping, being very aggressive. It went from shoving me to pushing her, holding her, pushing her back on the bed, telling her, not do this, you're drunk, lay down, go to sleep, sleep it off, that's all it is, you're drunk. She gets back up, she slaps me. I slap her back, she punched me, I punch her back, and we go back into the whole argument of going back and forth again and again, to the fact that I hold her down on the bed and tell her and beg and plead with her not to keep being aggressive. Just lay down, go to sleep, sleep it off.
Okay.
To that point, we woke up in the morning after.
All right. So let me dissect for you, Mr. Daniel, what you have just told me. What you have just told me was that you were not so drunk that you couldn't drive.
Yes. Yes, Your
So
Honor.
you were sober enough to withstand the sobriety test.
Yes, Your Honor.
Fine. And she was so drunk that she was passed out in back of the car.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then you take her home, and
My
she
house.
starts to act aggressive.
Yes, Your Honor.
She punches you, you punch her back.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is the person who was so drunk, this is what you tell me, that she didn't know what was going on. You, on the other hand, are sober.
Yes, Your Honor.
I always love it when they bury themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Shooting fish in a barrel.
Shooting fish in a barrel. All you got to do is let them talk. They make up some cock and bull story, right?
Yep.
That they say, well, this is going to work. She was the aggressor. I could drive because I was okay, right? You can't assault somebody when they're so drunk that they don't know what's going on, Mr. Daniel.
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand where we're going now?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're the sober one. She's drunk. That's according to you. You're the defendant.
Yes, Your Honor.
When she punched you, you should have gotten up, should have gone downstairs, should have gotten in your car, go to a friend's house and say, listen, I'm not going to stay with this lady. She's out of it. She's assaultive. She's nuts. This is the way she gets when she's drunk. I don't want to have anything to do with her. I'm certainly not going to hit her because she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm not saying I didn't make a mistake, Your Honor.
Good. Mistakes cost.
Yes, Your Honor.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,600. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I would describe it as her friends telling me that night that since she's drinking and she's being aggressive, that she's Diablo.
That's just something my friends say joking around. It's not even like that.
And I'm like, okay, that's the devil.
It's just my little playful nickname between my friends.
And it turned out to be that way.
The whole situation is he drank more than he could handle, and that's all it comes down to.
I learned from my mistakes.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Damon versus Ressa, step forward, please.
21-year-old bartender Amber Damon is suing her former friend, 21-year-old subcontractor Samuel Ressa, for crashing her car, forcing her to drop out of fashion school.
According to what I read in your complaint, on the evening of January 26, 2005, you were all out drinking. You had a car. You drove to a bar. You were drinking and had too much to drink. A lot of other people were drinking too. Somebody wanted to go home. Somebody by the name of Jason. Who's Jason? Raise your hand. You still drink, Jason?
Yes.
Yeah. How did I know that? How did I know that? Jason wanted to go home. You told the defendant, could you take him home? And you gave the defendant your car keys to take Jason home.
He'd already had the car keys.
Whatever. He didn't steal the car keys from you. You gave him the keys. He took Jason home, came back to the bar,
Yes, Your Honor.
and that's the last time you saw your car. The car was subsequently found. It was wrecked a little bit, and it was taken to impound, and you couldn't get your books and stuff for school out of the trunk so that you couldn't go to school, and you ended up losing tuition because you ended up backing out of school for that semester. A whole series of events that you believe should be visited on Mr. Reese's doorstep, right?
Correct.
Because he didn't take good care of the car.
Yes.
Was the car a used car?
Yes.
Was it insured?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get insurance money for it?
No, because the towing place sold it without the lien notice, so they're going to end up having to pay for it.
So you're off the hook with regard to the car.
Yes.
So all you're suing him for is for the trauma that you incurred as a result of missing school because you couldn't get to your books that were inside the car.
Yes. There's more to it than that, though.
Let's hear it fast.
Well, we would go out every Wednesday, and I'd had a couple beers, so I didn't feel comfortable driving. And I thought I was being responsible by asking him to take Jason over to our house. And then he came back safe and sound. And later on, I didn't plan on leaving, so I didn't ask for my keys back or anything. And he had wanted to leave, but I just assumed that he was getting a ride or whatever. And he apparently took my car.
It's not what he says. He says he walked home. It was a couple of blocks away.
Yes, Your Honor.
I have stuff, maybe not proving, but it really looks like he took my car.
Well, what do you have that suggests that he took your car later?
Well, I was going to fashion design school, so I remember what people wear. And I specifically remember him wearing a hat when he came back after dropping Jason off. And I found this hat in the car, which is the hat that he was wearing that night.
Miss Damon, I want you to listen to me very carefully, my dear. There is no question in my mind that under the scenario that you gave me, that you had given him the keys to the car, and that was the last time you saw the car, and the car had in fact been in an accident. I think I would have been prepared, despite the fact that Mr. Risa says I walked home, to say it was your responsibility to safeguard this car. Based upon what I read in the papers, the car was found with the keys in the car, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Therefore, if somebody found the keys, they had to be very smart to find the keys and say, I think I want to go try the ignitions of all the cars. And I'm going to go check all the cars and see if any of this fits. So I think I would have been able to say, with a fair degree of certainty, that the defendant was responsible for your car. But you have no out-of-pocket expenses for your car. You want him to pay for your school tuition. And I'm telling you, Miss Damon, you have to be more resourceful, my dear. There are methods that you can use to get your books out of the trunk of the car so that you can study and go to school without dropping out of school. That's not his fault.
There was no way that I could get them because they were no longer there. And there was also the police department was throwing me around too because it wasn't registered in my name yet because I hadn't even made a payment on it. I just bought in the car, not even a month before that. So they were telling me I wasn't even going to be able to look at it.
Well, you managed to get the hat. Did you go to your teachers and say, listen, I need a little time, I have to get new books?
We were almost to midterms and all of the projects led off of each other. So there was no way that I could make them up, and they told me I had to withdraw for that semester.
That's not Mr. Reese's fault, Miss Damon. I can't legitimately find that your dropping out of school was the proximate cause of Mr. Reese's actions. It doesn't work that way. You have to take a certain amount of responsibility for taking your car, drinking, giving the keys to somebody else. That's partially your responsibility. I would have said Mr. Reese was responsible if he had any out-of-pocket expenses for the car, but not for your school tuition. Sorry, case is dismissed.
Isaac, excuse you.
Steve Hargrave Jr. is suing former customer Catherine Kirkendall for cashing a phony check. Catherine claims she was the victim of a scam.
Yeah, this is case number 3 on the calendar in the matter of Hargrave versus Kirkendall. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat, please.
Mr. Hargrave, you own a store. Is
Yes,
it a
I do.
check cashing store or a convenience store?
Convenience store, Your Honor.
And you know the defendant for some time.
Yes, Your Honor.
She would come in, according to you, and cash checks, other than buying things there, she would cash checks. And
Her and her
you would
husband, Your
cash
Honor.
checks
Yes.
for her.
Yes, Your Honor.
And your complaint is that she came in with a large check,
Yes, Your Honor.
$2,500, that you cashed for her,
Yes, Your Honor.
and it turned out to be a bad check.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Kirkendall says that she is sorry about that, but that she was the victim of a scam, and she didn't know the check was bad, and she's sorry.
Well, Your
okay?
Honor.
That's what the case is about. So I'm going to have to start with you. There are certain facts that I gather are not in dispute. A, there was a check for $2,500. You brought that check to the plaintiff, and the plaintiff cashed that check and gave you $2,500.
Not, he didn't give it to me. It was sent Western Union that day.
He made out a money order?
Yeah, Western Union order.
He did?
First of all, I don't know this gentleman. I haven't seen him in the store.
He's the owner of the store, I
Okay.
assume.
Yes, Your Honor.
And it was not him, but another employee that works in the store.
Now you're going to tell me about the scam, Ms. Kirkendall.
Okay, the girl that caught me off guard received a letter.
What do you mean the girl that caught you off guard?
The girl that sent the letter. She previously called.
What are you talking about?
How I got the check. How it all started.
Well, you're starting in the middle of a sentence. The girl caught you off guard. I don't understand that.
I heavy depression. I just lost my 21-year-old son. So I received this letter during the depression.
You received the letter in the mail?
Right.
Let me see the letter.
And that's the death certificate to prove that my son was.
I don't need the death certificate. It has nothing to do with this case. Well, first of all, I'm reading this letter, and this letter, dated January 17th, 2005, is allegedly from somebody by the name of Sherry, who is telling you from Australia that you have won $50,000. However, Sherry is illiterate. You're not illiterate, are you?
No.
All right. I'm just reading a paragraph to you from this letter. So I'm mailing in regards to know why you have not made any effort to claim your money. In regards to know why.
Right.
I don't know why somebody will wait that long to claim their money, T-H-E-R-E. Their money. You responded to this letter? Just a second. I mean, it gets worse.
Yeah, it does.
To elaborate more, this draw was held in Australia. And if we don't hear from you in 3 days, your file will be closed, C-L-O-S-E, and you will no longer be able to claim your winnings. Okay. Go ahead. So you got this letter, and then they tell you what? They tell you that they're going to send you a check for $2,550, and you have to cash that check and send them back a money order. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Is that what happened? So they send you a check for $2,550. You take that check from the same person, from Sherry, from Sherry, this illiterate, and you take it to this man's store.
I called the bank.
You called what bank?
I called the bank that the check was drawn on.
Let me see.
This is the second check she sent me. The first check came back clear. The bank said it was good and everything.
Well, show me. Show me where the bank said it was good.
Well, I don't.
Show me. Show me the bank.
It was all done verbally because we went.
No, my dear.
I called on the phone and I went to the bank to cash it at the bank because they said it was good.
So why didn't they take care of it there?
Because they wanted me to open an account. I didn't have an account with them. And they said any check cashing place would do it. So that's when I went to the store.
No. So then you took it there.
And they called on it.
Who called on it? Did somebody from your end call on it?
Yes, Your Honor. We called. What it was is we can't verify that there's funds in the account. We can verify that that individual is in good standing with the bank. Being that she has such a history cashing checks with us, she cashed one September of '03 for $2,800. So we couldn't verify that there was funds in there, but we took her word for it.
What do you mean you took her word for it?
We asked her if this check comes back, will you be able to, honor it if for any reason something happens to it.
Sir, that's a lot of baloney. First of all, you can't testify to that because you weren't there. You didn't deal with her. This man didn't deal with her.
Actually, I
Where
was
is
there,
the
Your Honor.
What?
I was there. He authorized me cashing the check. Mike, another one of my associates.
She says you weren't there.
Have you read the police report, Your Honor? I
No,
don't think
let
she
me
knows
see it.
what was going on.
Let me see it. You were there? You were present?
Oh, yes, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. Well, she says you weren't, so I was under the impression
Mike was
you weren't
the individual that sent the Western Union.
Who are you, sir?
I'm her husband.
Oh, I'd like to see you. Get up. What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm an electrician.
You read English?
Yes, I do.
Did you read this letter? Just a second. You read this letter that
Yes,
looks
I
as
did.
if it was written by some illiterate?
We made fun about the letter. We laughed about it, the way it was written.
You did?
Yes. We thought it was a scam from the beginning.
Right. So why did you involve him with your scam?
We called the bank. I know this is hearsay, but we
It
called.
sure is hearsay, sir.
We gave them the check number, and that's what they verified.
What do you mean?
from.
You mean you called and you gave them the check number and the bank told you that over the phone?
Yes.
Your wife just told me she went there.
went
Just a
there.
second. Your wife just told me she went there.
We called the bank first to verify it was good. Then we went to the bank to try and cash it. That's when they told us that it was a corporate money order, and that we had to open up an account.
I don't believe you. And even if I believe you, listen to me, even if I believe you, anybody who got this letter and who believes in good faith that this isn't a crank is an idiot.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You read the letter, you made fun of it. You thought it was a scam.
But the
If you
bank
had,
said it was
listen
good.
to me.
And later today,
Your cake ruined her wedding. It didn't taste good. It didn't look nice, and she's not paying for it.
I didn't get what I asked
I'm
for.
speaking.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Convenience store co-owner Steve Hargrave Jr. says former customer Catherine Kirkendall cashed a phony check for $2,500 in his store.
I have to decide whether you had sufficient knowledge, or should have had sufficient knowledge, that this was a hoax before you go to some unsuspecting place and cash this check. Now, if everything looked really legitimate, if it looked like you were being contacted by the prize patrol, I would say, well, maybe you were legitimately scammed. But I have to find that you didn't walk around with your head in the sand. This suggests to me that two people who've lived as long as you and your wife have lived, who work, who are employed, who read and write English, had to have had notice that this was bad. Did you ever see this letter, sir?
No, I certainly wouldn't cash
Just
the
a
check,
second.
Your Honor.
You think that if he saw this letter, that this was a prize patrol letter, he would have cashed your check from this illiterate? I guarantee you he wouldn't have. Guaranteed.
But he was told where the check came from.
Listen to me. You didn't show him this letter, did you?
No.
He didn't ask for it, Your Honor.
I don't care whether he asked for it or not. You and your husband, listen to me. You and your husband, according to your husband, had real misgivings after reading this letter. You thought it was a scam. You think that if you showed him this letter, he might not have cashed the check? The answer is we'll never know. You didn't show it to him. You didn't tell him about it. You didn't say, listen,
Yes,
I
I did.
Just a second. You told him you got a letter that sounded like it was written by an illiterate? You told him you got a letter
The
that sounded
employee
as if...
he asked where I got the check from, what it was for, and I told him
Did you-
for some winnings.
Some winnings?
The
You told him-
employee...
Shh. Did you tell him you got a letter that sounded as if it was written by an illiterate?
No. I told him I received a letter stating I got some
Just
winnings.
answer my question. Did you tell him that you got a letter that was very suspicious to both you and your husband?
I told him it did sound suspicious because he
I don't believe you.
He even said it sounded fishy.
No, he said the scheme sounded fishy. I'm asking you whether you showed them the
No, I
letter
didn't
and
show
whether
them
you
the letter.
said that the letter sounds as if it was written by an illiterate on an internet piece of paper.
No, I didn't show him
And
the letter.
Comes to you
Handwritten.
in this envelope.
Right.
So, let me tell you what the law is, as I perceive it. And since I am the ultimate arbiter of what's right and wrong, you're stuck with it.
Can I say something first, please?
Sure.
They called on the check.
Just a second. Hearsay.
No, I watched him call the check. He verified. He kept me there for a half hour calling on the check. This gentleman here asked the employee that was calling the check, says what was wrong, because I was there for a half hour, and the guy says he were having problems with the bottom numbers. He gave him
absolutely
the
right.
okay to cash the check.
Listen to me. Now we're going to start again from the beginning. You received this in the mail.
Right.
Handwritten, no return address, looked like it was written from someone who was just released from a psychiatric institution. On a piece of computer-generated stationery that is replete with misspellings, bad grammar, from some organization that has told you that you have won $50,000. Now, you have to be an idiot to take one step further and go any further instead of taking this letter and ripping it up and throwing it in the garbage. But you had this information. And if you had taken this letter to this store and this man would have seen this letter, there isn't a question in my mind that he would not have invested $2,500 in this scam. You tend to lose nothing. You have lost nothing. You had the information to save him. You chose not to give him this information despite the fact that you had this information, and according to your husband, you read the letter, you made fun of it. You thought it was a scam.
But the
if you
bank
had
said it was
listen
good.
to me. If you had said to him, listen, I'm going to share with you all the information that I have. This is the letter I got. And if after you did that, the plaintiff chose to cash your check and to turn over $2,500 of his money, I would say he's as dumb as you are and he deserves what he gets. But right now, you had withheld from him this information and you're stuck because he shouldn't be out the money. Put your hand down. He shouldn't be out the money because he wasn't armed with the information that you had. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,550. Thank you. That's it.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
If he was hesitant, he shouldn't have cashed it, but he got the okay to cash it, and he cashed it.
We've been cashing checks for a long time for him. I had no question of, doubt the validity of the check.
You know, I was in a depression, a heavy depression, so I just thought some luck would be coming our way.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Nybert versus Sanders, step forward, please.
Healthcare agent Catherine Nybert is suing her former friend, customer service rep Alicia Sanders, for the cost of a wedding cake. Alicia says the cake was a disaster and it ruined her wedding.
Miss Nybert, you and Miss Sanders were friends, knew each other from work, according to what I read in this complaint. And she was getting married. You agreed to make the wedding cake.
That's correct.
And your agreement was that you would make the cake. She had selected the cake. She had a picture of it. She would pay you for the ingredients, which were a couple of $100s. And the labor that went into making this cake would be your gift to her.
That's correct.
You made the cake. You delivered the cake. You didn't get your money.
That's right.
Mrs. Sanders says your cake ruined her wedding. It didn't taste good. It didn't look nice, and she's not paying for it.
That's right.
When she approached you, Miss Nybert, she showed you a picture, according to what I read.
That's correct.
Do you have that picture?
I do.
I'd like to see it. By the way, do you do this as a hobby or as...
It's basically a hobby. I do it for good friends and family. I just charge them cost. I do it out of a gift of love because I care about the person.
You have a picture of the finished wedding cake?
You bet I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
I also have some pictures of the finished cake that I would
like to see it, please. You have several.
Yes, I do.
Well, the cake isn't in this picture, right?
No. I just thought you'd like to see that I had a designer wedding gown, I had a beautiful wedding, and I was so excited to have a designer wedding cake.
Well, why didn't you order the one from a designer bake shop?
Because it cost
listen to me.
$700.
Listen to me. So, well, that's what it costs.
Apparently, you're right.
Is this your first marriage? That's not a hard question.
No.
How many weddings have you had?
One. I went to Las Vegas. I was married for 3 months. He was deployed. We never lived together. This was the first wedding
This is your...
that I... Yes.
Okay. You bought a designer dress?
Yes.
How much did you pay for the dress?
$3,000.
You didn't spend $500 for a copy. Is that
No,
right?
that's right.
Shh. Just pay careful attention. Did you have expensive food at the wedding?
Yes.
How much did you pay per person?
I don't know per person. We didn't do it by per person. We did a buffet style. We spent about $1,000 on the food.
How many people did you have at this wedding?
About 400.
You had 400 people at the wedding and you spent $1,000 for food? Mm-hmm. Is that right?
You know, my mom helped us out with the food and
You could
everything.
stand up, please,
Okay.
when you talk to me.
Well, my mother helped us out with the food, so that cut down some of the
Our
expenses.
family made the food, so we didn't hire a caterer, so we had a lot of expenses cut. And this was another way that I thought I could cut my expenses.
Well,
and
when you,
unfortunately, I should
so I
not.
want to explain to you, Miss Sanders, when you paid top dollar for your dress, you were satisfied with the product, is that right?
Yes.
If you had wanted a designer wedding cake, which according to your answer costs $700, you were not prepared to spend the $700. You were prepared to spend less, right?
Yes.
So you got somebody who was going to try to copy the cake that you wanted, right?
Yep.
A copy isn't an original.
That's right.
Right.
I found out the hard way.
Right. Whether you found out the hard way, Ms. Sanders, or the easy way, you owe Ms. Nybert the money.
I didn't get what I asked
I'm
for.
speaking. Pay careful attention. You had a cake. It was the only cake you had there. The only one you had. And you displayed it. You didn't, I'm looking at your pictures. You displayed it with a lot of little flower girls who got their fingers in it. So
nobody else wanted to eat it.
I am speaking. When I speak, you don't. Is this your first marriage?
Yes.
Good luck to you. You see, you displayed the wedding cake, and you had two little girls who were flower girls or members of the wedding party, or maybe just guests. They were there putting their fingers all over it and tasting the frosting. They didn't look as if they're still with us on this earth, are they not? So you displayed the wedding cake. You may not have liked it, but you used it. And when you use it, you pay for it. Do I make myself clear?
Yes.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $200. That's all.
iPhone editing tutorial. Exposure 100. Brilliance 70. Highlights 50. Shadows 30. Contrast 44. Brightness 9. Black point 7. Saturation 13. Vibrance 54. Warmth 40. Tint 6. Sharpness 4. Vignette 46. Add vivid filter. Take away exposure at 29.